Chapter 1, 1991, Surrey, England. Ethan Green was lying on an old wooden bed in a cramped, dilapidated, and dark room. The walls, pitted and stained, and the furniture, covered in dust, clearly indicated the poor living conditions. Stretching out his hands, Ethan looked at his young palms and sighed, "What bad luck! Why did God let me be reborn in this miserable place?" Indeed, Ethan was an unfortunate soul reborn. Originally named Ting, Ethan Green was the name he chose after being reborn, with Ethan symbolizing thunder and lightning, and green representing green leaves. In his previous life, he was a college graduate from the Dragon Kingdom, born into a middle-class family with supportive parents, excellent grades, and no worries about future debts. He was, by all accounts, a winner in life. Yet, following an accident, he found himself reborn, returning to his infancy, and transported to England in 1980, ending up in the Lelk orphanage. Now, 11 years later, he was an 11-year-old child once again. What bad luck, Ethan sighed once more. However, this rebirth did not grant him any extraordinary abilities. Since the age of 3, he discovered he could slightly move objects with his mind when he concentrated, but even with the mind of an adult and this minor superpower, he struggled. The conditions in an orphanage were far from conducive to thriving, and being of Asian descent, even with a handsome face, his chances of adoption were slim. Now at the age of rapid growth, Ethan was determined to improve his life, seeking adequate nutrition to avoid becoming stunted. What can an 11-year-old child do? Ethan pondered, confident in his ability to succeed in the future with his knowledge of events more than 30 years ahead. Yet, at 11, his options were limited. Without capital, starting a business was out of the question, and employment opportunities for someone his age were non-existent. His past life's hobby of music offered no viable path without formal training. Then, an idea struck him as he glanced at a tattered fairy tale book beside his bed. Writing. I can be a copywriter, he thought excitedly. The first choice for copying is the Harry Potter series. It's 1991, 6 years before Aunt Rowling publishes her first novel, The Philosopher's Stone. This series, originally aimed at children, doesn't demand a sophisticated writing style or depth. It makes sense for me to write a fairy tale for children. If asked, I'll say it was just my daily fantasy, and I can definitely write one book a year. A genius child writing a wonderful fairy tale, with both the author and the characters growing together. Such a compelling story, coupled with the work's potential, will surely be a hit. Speaking of which, there was a boy named Harry Potter in elementary school. I can definitely say he inspired me. If things go well, maybe I can achieve wealth and freedom before reaching adulthood? Suddenly, his musings about the future were interrupted by a sound. Boom, boom, boom. Was someone knocking on the window? Ethan was startled. This was the second floor. Turning around, he saw an owl outside the window, holding an envelope in its beak and looking at him. Ethan took a deep breath and carefully opened the window. The owl hopped in skillfully and dropped the letter on the windowsill. Trembling, Ethan reached out and picked up the letter. The envelope was thick and had a vintage feel, with the address written in emerald green ink. Mr. Ethan Green, Collector, St. Lurka's Orphanage, Little Winging, Surrey. The envelope bore no stamps, but on its reverse, a red wax seal caught Ethan's eye, marked with an emblem. The seal featured a shield adorned with the letter H and surrounded by a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake. Holding the letter, Ethan sighed deeply. The arrival of this owl-delivered letter dashed his dreams of achieving financial freedom through writing The Philosopher's Stone. Yet this mattered little now, for his dream of becoming a wizard was about to be realized. This exploit aimed his so-called minor superpower, a clear sign of a budding wizard's magical awakening. And the boy named Harry Potter must be the wizarding world's savior, the one who survived a great catastrophe. Ethan pondered why, as a person from a world devoid of magic, he could awaken to magic in this new world. But such concerns faded in the face of his excitement to become a wizard. Carefully he opened the letter, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster. Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Federation of Wizards, First Class Order of Merlin, Grand Sorcerer, Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot. Dear Mr. Green, we are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Enclosed is a list of necessary books and equipment. The term begins on September 1st. Please send your reply by OWL no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. The letter continued with a detailed list of requirements. Uniforms. First-year students will need 1. 3 sets of plain work robes, black. 2. 1 plain pointed hat for day wear, black. 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 4. 1 winter cloak, black with silver clasps. Please note, all student clothing must be clearly labeled with the owner's name. Textbooks. All students should have the following: Standard Spells, Grade 1 by Miranda Goshawk, A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot, The Theory of Magic by Adalbert Waffling, A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emeric Switch, 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Felita Spore, Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander, The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment: 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2, 1 set of glass or crystal phials, 1 telescope, 1 set of brass scales. Students may also bring an owl, a cat, or a toad. Parents are reminded that first-year students are not permitted to bring their own broomsticks. Holding the parchment, Ethan felt a surge of excitement. Ah, from now on, I will be a part of Hogwarts. He chuckled to himself, imagining an advertisement for the school. Learn magic with us. Over 800 stainless steel cauldrons, strong connections with all 4 houses, and a faculty of highly skilled professors. With over 200,000 students worldwide, Hogwarts promises a stable, high-income career with guaranteed lifelong employment. Despite the prospect of facing Voldemort and the Death Eaters over the next 7 years, and being classmates once again with a primary school peer, Ethan couldn't help but feel thrilled. Becoming a wizard was a dream come true. Forget early fame, wealth, and freedom. If he could choose his path, it would be the wizarding world, without a second thought. Chapter 2. Goo 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 goo. The cry of the owl interrupted the traveler's excited daydreams. Ethan, recognizing the impatience in the bird's gaze, quickly opened the drawer, retrieved a biscuit, broke it into small pieces, and placed them before the bird. Understanding the importance of this feathered postman to his destiny, he knew it was essential to keep it well fed. As the owl busied itself with the food, Ethan took out a pen and paper to craft his reply. Being an adult, he was acutely aware that his background as an orphan from a Muggle orphanage required him to tread carefully, especially given his knowledge from his previous life. He couldn't afford to act as though no one knows Hogwarts better than me, like a veteran of the Harry Potter series. Instead, he had to craft his words to reflect his supposed age, embodying the image of a precocious yet imaginative child. Soon, a carefully worded reply was ready. "Well, that's trouble for Mr. Owl," Ethan murmured, securing the reply onto the owl's leg. Watching the bird take flight, he then shared the news with the orphanage director in a light-hearted manner, mentioning the magical school named Hogwarts that had supposedly sent him a notice. The director, amused, dismissed it as a possible prank by some mischievous child. However, the reality of Ethan's situation was confirmed the very next day. A knock at the orphanage door early in the morning revealed a tall woman in her 50s or 60s, clad in an emerald green robe, wearing glasses, and exuding a formidable aura with a stern expression. Her scrutinizing gaze fell upon Ethan, noting his black hair, black eyes, and the clear signs of malnourishment despite his handsome features. "Mr. Ethan Epiphany, correct?" she inquired. "Yes, that's me," Ethan confirmed. "I am Professor Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress of Hogwarts," she introduced herself. Ethan noted the differences between this real-life version of Professor McGonagall and the one from the movies. It was a reminder that this was indeed the real world, where appearances could differ significantly from their cinematic counterparts. The orphanage director, taken aback, inquired about the magical school mentioned in Ethan's letter. Before the word prank could leave his lips, Professor McGonagall's demeanor and the wand in her hand made it clear she was no prankster. The comparison Ethan made between her and a high school dean from his past life seemed apt. Without further ado, Professor McGonagall cast a spell on the director, who suddenly became overwhelmingly supportive, praising Ethan as a genius and expressing gratitude towards Hogwarts for accepting him. As this unfolded, Ethan experienced a profound realization. A voice in his head announced, "You feel magic for the first time. Because you possess the wisdom of your previous life, you awaken to a heaven-defying understanding. You have a chance of having an epiphany when learning new things. In your previous life, you mastered information from all heavens and all realms. Your arrival had an impact on this world. Your understanding can comprehend the wisdom from all heavens and all realms. You have watched the use of psychic suggestion magic. You have understood the power of the mind, and you have awakened psychic powers. You have learned the passive psychic ability, charm humans, hidden thoughts. Perception beyond the ordinary? Psychic magic?" Ethan was astounded. It appeared that the Hogwarts admission notice was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Appetizer indeed, this is the real golden finger. The so-called psychic spells originate from a profession known as psychics in the D&D world. Psychic abilities are developed through the cultivation of one's mental faculties via long-term rigorous self-discipline and mental exercises. This form of power is an inner energy stemming from one's life force and spirit, embodying an idealistic strength. Such abilities can directly influence the mind and produce effects akin to spells. However, unlike spells, psychic powers are invisible, formless, and do not require the cumbersome process of chanting and spellcasting rituals. They can be activated with a mere thought. Yet psychic powers solely depend on the inner strength of the caster, lacking the extensive magic tables or various magic books for learning. Abilities must be self-discovered by the user. Nonetheless, the profession of psychics stands on equal footing with that of wizards. With heaven-defying comprehension, the fear of having to unearth spells on my own diminishes. The two spells I currently possess, Charm Humans and Hidden Thoughts, serve powerful functions. Charm Humans allows for mental suggestion to make others view you favorably, akin to hypnosis, though it doesn't grant absolute control. Its advantage lies in its subtlety, leaving no trace and going undetected. Hidden Thoughts acts similarly to a brain-hiding technique, ensuring that the secrets deep within my heart, capable of upending the world, remain safe from the prying eyes of schemers like Snape, Dumbledore, and Voldemort. Truly, a Goldfinger is deserving of its name, bestowing such a potent gift package immediately. Professor McGonagall, standing before me, had no inkling that the young wizard before her had transformed into a psychic in an instant. Ethan, ever cautious, chose not to disclose this. Pretending ignorance, he eyed the wand in her hand and expressed concern. "Is this magic? It won't negatively affect the dean, right?" Professor McGonagall's face softened, a slight smile appearing. "Don't worry, Mr. Green. This is merely a simple suggestion spell and will not harm her. She'll only believe that you've been accepted into a prestigious Muggle school. After all, it's best to keep magic hidden from Muggles." She clarified, "Muggles are non-magical people, unaware of the existence of magic." Following this, she tapped the table with her wand, and the 4 wooden legs of the table, animated, scampering around the room. "Wow! Amazing!" Ethan exclaimed, genuinely astonished. Having been an ordinary person in his previous life, this was his first encounter with transformation magic. You observed the transformation spell, gaining some insight into it, increasing your expertise in transformation spells by +1. Professor McGonagall, unfazed by the Muggle-born wizard's reaction, inquired, "Mr. Green, have you always possessed a unique ability that set you apart from other children?" "Do you mean this?" Ethan concentrated on a spoon resting on the table. The spoon began to tremble, then bent sharply. If this were the world of Pokémon, Professor McGonagall's accuracy would have diminished. "The control is precise and well executed," Professor McGonagall noted, her eyes sparkling with interest. Although the simple act of bending a spoon did not demonstrate immense magical power, the fact that Ethan could focus on the spoon without disturbing the other tableware indicated his significant control over magical energy. This level of precision is rare among young wizards, suggesting a highly talented individual. "Well, while it's still early, Mr. Green, come with me, and I'll take you to buy. You can call me Ethan, Professor McGonagall." "Before leaving, I want to say something to the dean," Ethan said, expressing his concern. Professor McGonagall dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand. No need. You can't explain this kind of thing clearly to muggles. If that aunt were the parent of a muggle-born wizard, it would indeed be necessary to inform them of their child's whereabouts. They have this right, even under the Wizarding Secrecy Act. However, since she is from the orphanage, the situation is different. In my eyes, she cannot be considered your guardian, she explained, opting to use a confusion spell on him instead. Yet, Ethan's concerns were not entirely addressed. He hesitantly added, Professor McGonagall, I really want to go shopping with you, but I don't have any money. Over the years, I've only managed to save £9.15. £9.15 might be enough to buy a shirt, let alone anything in the wizarding world. Professor McGonagall offered a gentle smile in response. Mr. Ethan, I don't think you need to worry about that. You're not the first student we've had in this situation. Hogwarts has provisions for this. Every school year, we prepare an interest-free student loan for students like you. You only need to repay it after you graduate and find employment. An interest-free student loan? Ethan thought to himself, impressed by the generosity. It seemed far more considerate than the financial aid options available in the colleges and universities of Midi, and perhaps even those in the Long Kingdom. Wait, Ethan paused in his thoughts. This isn't the first time Professor McGonagall has dealt with a situation like this. Could it be that the last person like me was Tom Riddle? As his mind wandered, he noticed an advertisement for a Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day family promotion. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points. Grab a deposit now, the advertisement announced, running from September 29th to October 6th. Chapter 3. After discussing the financial matters, Professor McGonagall led Ethan to a secluded alley. The Lerky orphanage, where Ethan had been living, was situated in a remote area, far from the bustling streets, making the alley appear even more deserted. A sense of unease washed over Ethan as they stopped walking. Professor McGonagall then spoke. Mr. Green, to expedite our journey, we'll need to use magic to reach our destination. It might be a bit uncomfortable, so please try to bear with it. Okay, Ethan replied, bracing himself for what was to come. Very well then, please take my hand. Apparate! In an instant, Ethan felt an overwhelming sensation envelop him. It was as if his entire body was being squeezed through a narrow tube, causing him discomfort unlike anything he had ever experienced. Time seemed to stretch on indefinitely during the process. When his feet finally touched solid ground again, Ethan nearly collapsed, his stomach churning violently. He felt as if he was about to regurgitate the meager breakfast he had consumed earlier. Observing Ethan's discomfort, Professor McGonagall offered a supportive pat on the back and handed him a chocolate frog. My apologies, Mr. Green. How are you feeling? We have many new students to attend to today, so this method of travel was necessary. Eating something should help you feel better. No, it's okay, Professor McGonagall. I'm fine. Ethan managed to say, despite feeling otherwise. He unwrapped the chocolate frog and popped it into his mouth, the sensation of the frog's legs twitching and the cold sweetness providing an immediate relief. It was a stark contrast to the subpar desserts he had been accustomed to for the past 11 years. Ethan thought to himself that, if nothing else, attending Hogwarts would at least be a culinary upgrade. In that moment, Ethan received a notification. You have personally experienced apparition. The discomfort from this mode of travel has led you to learn the spell Dimensional Anchor. Dimensional Anchor. This spell can temporarily restrict space to prevent the use of spatial movement spells. Ethan couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret. Had his initial reaction been one of enjoyment rather than nausea, perhaps he would have mastered the art of apparition instead. However, he quickly realized that the ability to restrict all forms of spatial movement could be more advantageous than a simple anti-apparition jinx. Lifting his gaze, Ethan noticed a modestly sized entrance in front of him, dwarfed by the door of the orphanage. To the uninitiated, it could easily be mistaken for a public restroom. Flanked by a bookstore and a record shop, its quaint retro sign, featuring a picture of a leaking cauldron, stood out amidst the colorful neon lights of its neighbors. Despite its peculiar charm, passers-by seemed oblivious to its existence. This is our destination, the Leaky Cauldron on Charing Cross Street, Professor McGonagall explained. A charm prevents muggles from noticing it. She promptly opened the door and led Ethan inside. The interior was dimly lit, illuminated only by oil lamps, giving it an ambiance that could have been mistaken for a nightclub in a different setting. The magical world's aversion to electrical appliances was evident here. Despite its reputation, the Leaky Cauldron was unkempt and disorganized, filled with wooden tables of various shapes and sizes. The patrons, a collection of wizards engaged in conversation, added to the eclectic atmosphere. Upon their entrance, many greeted Professor McGonagall warmly. Tom Abbott, the bald proprietor, greeted them from behind the bar. "Oh, Professor McGonagall, it's been a while. Are you here with a new student for this year?" he inquired. "Yes, Tom. This young wizard comes from a non-magical background. I'm taking him to Diagon Alley for his supplies," she replied. "Welcome, young man," Tom said, nodding at Ethan with a friendly smile. "What a fine lad. My granddaughter is also starting at Hogwarts this year. You'll be classmates." Ethan said that his innate charm was at work. "Hello, Mr. Tom. I'm Ethan Green," he introduced himself, feeling a sense of belonging in this new, magical world. "I am honored to be your granddaughter's classmate," Ethan said, after exchanging a few words with Professor McGonagall. They exited the Leaky Cauldron through the back door, where a seemingly dead-end alley and a trash can against the wall awaited them. Professor McGonagall approached the wall and instructed, "Remember how to open this." Demonstrating, she said, "Start from the trash can, count 3 bricks upward, then 2 bricks horizontally, and tap it with your wand." Suddenly, the solid brick wall began to transform. Bricks receded and overlapped, revealing an arched passage that led to a winding cobblestone street. This was Diagon Alley, the gateway to the magical world. Ethan followed Professor McGonagall, his eyes wide with wonder at the sights around him. Shops selling pots, pans, animals, herbs, books, and broomsticks, with wizards in various attire bustling about and owls soaring overhead. It was far more thrilling than any movie depiction. Professor McGonagall smiled slightly. "Okay, Ethan, there will be plenty of time for surprises in the future. For now, let's head to Gringotts. You have a lot to purchase." They walked for a few minutes until they reached a fork in the road, where they stopped in front of a 3-story white building, Gringotts. Amidst the ordinary wooden structures, this tall stone edifice stood out, majestic from afar. However, upon closer inspection, Ethan noticed that the white marble columns were oddly crooked, each leaning in its own unique direction. For someone with a scientific mind and a touch of obsessive-compulsive disorder, this was unsettling. He made a mental note to fix it if he ever had the chance. Guarding the bronze gates of Gringotts were elf guards in red uniforms, trimmed with gold. Despite their short stature, they exuded an air of arrogance that Ethan found off-putting. Ignoring them, he and Professor McGonagall entered, greeted by a white and silver door with an inscription that warned against greed and the severe consequences of seeking unearned wealth. "How do you feel when you see this?" Professor McGonagall asked, observing Ethan's reaction. Instead of expressing awe or reciting a standard response, Ethan snorted dismissively. "I only see their greed." Professor McGonagall was taken aback by his insight. After a moment, she nodded in agreement. "You are right." She realized that the children of today were not only more mature than she had anticipated, but also more perceptive. She understood that goblins, skilled in metallurgy, were inherently greedy, believing that anything they crafted belonged to them indefinitely, with any payment considered merely rent. This belief extended to items like the sword of the first Gryffindor, leading to numerous conflicts and wars between goblins and wizards, all of which ended in goblin defeat. Despite controlling the wizarding world's only bank and maintaining a cooperative relationship with wizards, goblins remained wary and fearful, never fully at ease in their interactions with the wizarding community. To relinquish their avarice and arrogance, they maintained their reputations for an extended period. However, the shadow of defeat compelled them to adhere to the wizard's regulations. The phrase, seriousness yet softness, aptly describes this situation. In the hall, flanked by high counters on both sides, Professor McGonagall quickly secured Ethan's loan. To demonstrate their superiority, the goblins had designed the counters to be taller than usual, towering over Ethan himself. Consequently, the chairs behind the counter were also exceedingly high, likely requiring Ethan to use a small ladder to ascend and descend. "Okay, Ethan, you've got your loan," McGonagall said as she led Ethan away from this vexing place. "The next step is to buy a wand. Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day Family Promotion. Deposit 100 and receive 500 VIP coupons. Take advantage of this for now, promotion period September 29th to October 6th. Chapter 4. Ethan's Wand. Under the guidance of Professor McGonagall, Ethan arrived at a quaint store. The entrance was narrow, framed by an old door, and the window display featured faded purple cushions showcasing a single magic wand. Above the entrance, a gold sign, its paint peeling, proudly declared, "Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. Ethan couldn't help but question the authenticity of such a claim. If the sign spoke the truth, then Ollivander's lineage began crafting wands when the Dragon Kingdom was embroiled in the spring and autumn period, long before Rome became an empire, when Britain was still a Celtic land under the sway of Druidism, with the Anglo-Saxons and Normans yet to make their mark. Pushing the door open, they were greeted by the crisp sound of a copper bell. The interior was compact, dominated by shelves reaching the ceiling, filled with thousands of narrow cardboard boxes containing wands. Despite the onset of the school season, their early arrival meant the shop was still devoid of customers, enveloping the space in quiet. Ethan took a cautious breath upon entering. Despite the availability of magical cleaning spells, a layer of dust covered everything, which he found unsettling. "Good morning, Miss McGonagall. Is this the new young wizard for this year?" A soft voice emerged. An old man appeared from behind the counter, his large, pale eyes gleaming with excitement at the sight of Ethan. "Ah, splendid. You're our first customers today. I am Garrick Ollivander." Realizing who the man was, Ethan's skepticism seemed apparent. Ollivander, noticing this, remarked, "Most young wizards visit other shops before coming here to choose their wand. It's peculiar, considering the wand is a wizard's most important tool." As a newcomer to the wizarding world, Ethan simply shrugged, opting not to engage in the debate. "Let's proceed with selecting your wand. Please extend your hand," Ollivander instructed. A ruler levitated from the counter, automatically measuring Ethan's height, arm span, and more. "Which hand do you primarily use?" "My right," Ethan replied, then curiously added, "If I may ask, Mr. Ollivander, does your surname imply that your ancestor's wand was made of olive wood? The name seems to blend olive and wand together." "Ah, indeed, you're quite observant. You might find yourself in Ravenclaw," Ollivander complimented, continuing his measurements without pause. "Now, raise your other arm, please." Thankfully, the magical tape measure spared Ethan the awkwardness of being manually measured by the elderly wandmaker. It meticulously recorded dimensions from shoulder to fingertip, wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and finally, the circumference of his head. Aware of his age and the rapid growth he was likely to experience, Ethan wondered about the relevance of these measurements to wand selection, but complied nonetheless. "Try this one," Ollivander suggested, summoning a box that flew into his hand. 11¼ inches, alder wood with a core of dragon nerve. Alder wands suit those who are helpful, considerate, and likable. Give it a wave. Ethan did as instructed, and a burst of fire erupted, causing the box to smoke. "Am I perceived as likable?" he pondered silently. Ollivander, seemingly pleased, announced, "You're fortunate. This wand chooses you. That will be 9 galleons." "Wait, is that all? May I try another? This doesn't feel quite right," Ethan expressed, surprised that the selection process might be over so quickly. Ethan felt a bit resistant at first. In his mind, as the protagonist, he should be exceptionally selective when choosing a wand. It's unusual for someone to want to take their time picking a wand. Most young wizards prefer to find the right one quickly. "But all right," Ollivander remarked, perhaps showing a bit of appreciation for Ethan's earlier words, or maybe influenced by his charming humanity. "If you insist, you might want to try this 12-inch wand made of apple wood with a phoenix tail feather core. It's powerful, though not suited for dark magic." However, as soon as Ethan touched the wand, before he could even wave it, Ollivander snatched it back, saying, No, not this one," and giving Ethan a peculiar look. Ethan was left wondering if Ollivander was hinting at a potential for dark wizardry within him. What about this one? Cedar wood, phoenix tail feathers, Ollivander continued. In his shop, wands could only contain 3 types of cores: phoenix feathers, unicorn hair, and dragon heartstrings. However, wands crafted by other manufacturers might include different cores, such as Vela hair, thunderbird tail feathers, and various materials from the wider Americas. Ollivander had Ethan try several wands, each capable of casting powerful spells, including dark magic. Yet, despite Ethan's ability to produce some effects with each wand, Ollivander believed that a perfect fit had not been achieved if every wand seemed to fit perfectly. Sweat began to form on Ollivander's brow as he remarked, "Mr. Green, you're quite unique in your willingness to try so many wands. The good news is, you should be able to easily use others' wands when necessary, without trouble casting spells." After much thought, Ollivander retrieved a box wrapped in silky satin from the back hall. Ethan, for his part, was quite pleased with his situation, seeing it as a testament to his talent. He believed his ability to adapt to any wand indicated that his talent could transcend the limitations of any wand. "Try this wand, 11 inches, acacia wood, phoenix feather," Ollivander suggested, presenting a straight wand that radiated a golden red glow. Ethan felt an immediate, though subtle, attraction to it. Holding the wand, he experienced no dramatic reaction, but rather a sense of returning to his true self. He felt a peculiar sensation, as if the wand had become an extension of his body, responding accurately to his magical intentions. "Wow, it seems you two are a perfect match," Ollivander exclaimed, finally showing a smile. "Acacia is a rare wand wood, and I often find it challenging to match it with suitable wizards, which is why I keep so few in stock. But it reveals its strength only to the most talented individuals, and Mr. Green, you are certainly one of them." After paying Ollivander 10 gold galleons for the wand, Ethan and the shopkeeper exited the store. Professor McGonagall, who was waiting outside, expressed her satisfaction with the outcome. "Excellent. Now let's go get your school uniform tailored. The new book is underway, so please show your support with flowers, reviews, votes, rewards, and any other form of encouragement. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. Let's not leave the author in solitude. A big thank you to all our readers. I'm sorry, but it seems there was a mistake in your request. The text provided does not appear to be part of a novel or story, but rather looks like an advertisement or promotional message. Could you please provide the text from the novel you would like to have corrected and enhanced?" Chapter 5. A Prudent Choice. Ethan offered an awkward smile. "Professor, considering my financial situation, I think opting for second-hand clothing is a wise choice. I just spotted a decent second-hand clothing store." Professor McGonagall observed the boy. His expression was genuine. Having once been an adult, Ethan had moved past the age where impressing peers with clothing mattered to him. "Oh well," she conceded. Realistically, purchasing new items on Ethan's student loan was impractical. He had calculated his finances meticulously. His student loan for the first year amounted to 30 galleons, which would decrease by half in subsequent years. Having spent a third of this sum on a wand at Ollivander's, Ethan recognized the impossibility of economizing on the essential tool for spellcasting. A new textbook alone would cost at least 10 galleons. With the remaining 10 galleons, he needed to purchase a crucible and a set of glass bottles for potions class, dragon skin gloves for herbology, and a folding telescope for astronomy. Buying all new items would leave Ethan unable to afford even a robe. Thus, under Professor McGonagall's guidance, they first visited a second-hand robe shop, where Ethan selected slightly larger robes to accommodate future growth. Next, they acquired a set of used glass bottles, which, despite numerous scratches, were still functional after a thorough cleaning. Second-hand books were the easiest to find, with Flourish and Blott's bookstore offering a wide selection beneath its cabinets. Ethan found second-hand books particularly suitable for study. They not only contained additional annotations from senior students, but also highlighted key points, greatly benefiting lower-grade students. The challenge was to avoid books previously owned by less diligent students, especially those filled with drawings resembling comic books. After purchasing second-hand items, Ethan had 5 galleons left, needing only a crucible and a telescope. Perhaps we should buy these new? 5 galleons should suffice, suggested Professor McGonagall. No, Professor McGonagall, I'd prefer to wait, Ethan replied. There are nearly 2 months until school starts. I might find suitable second-hand items and save some galleons. Ethan's philosophy, shaped by his previous life, emphasized the importance of saving for emergencies. Galleons aren't everything, but without them, nothing is possible, he reasoned. After some thought, Professor McGonagall agreed with his approach and handed him the remainder of his student loan. Observing Ethan's independence and self-sufficiency convinced her of his capability to manage on his own. After apparating back to the orphanage, she left, unaware of Ethan's plans. Ethan, however, did not intend to stay at the orphanage. He decided to remain in Diagon Alley, aiming to earn money. He understood that to quickly enhance his magical abilities, he needed not only to study diligently but also to gain a deep understanding of magic. The best way to achieve this, he realized, was to immerse himself in the magical world, observing and participating in its production and life. In the magical world, the most direct path to superiority is through hard work. Working individuals, whether they be people, souls, or wizards, are esteemed above others. Upon returning to the orphanage, Ethan cleverly deceived the director, saying, "Due to my unique circumstances, the school has arranged a work-study position for me before the term begins. Not only will I earn money, but it also covers food and drinks." The director, already under the influence of a confundus charm cast by Professor McGonagall and swayed by Ethan's charming human's aura, readily accepted this explanation. Ethan spent his last night in the orphanage preparing for his departure. His belongings were few, mainly clothes, but he planned to purchase additional stationery from the Muggle world. He reasoned that since the Harry Potter universe did not require magic scrolls, ordinary ink would suffice. He also decided to stock up on litty, yet affordable paper, as Hogwarts only required parchment for homework. Having never used a quill, he opted for pens instead. With limited funds, Ethan was determined to make economical choices, even considering Muggle-made school uniforms if it were allowed. With time to spare, Ethan recalled that the restriction on underage wizards using magic outside of school only applied after the first term's holidays. This meant he could practice magic privately until then, just as Hermione had done at home. Determined not to be outdone, Ethan opened Standard Spells Elementary and began to study. The book outlined that a spell is a controlled form of magic, typically invoked through an incantation, to supernaturally influence the world. Successful spellcasting depended on 4 main factors: wand gesture, incantation, concentration, and intention. Spells were categorized into transfiguration, hexes, counterspells, and healing spells, with curses further divided by their level of malice. The book emphasized the fluidity of these categories, noting that a spell could belong to multiple categories simultaneously. It also distinguished charms from polymorph spells, explaining that charms add specific properties to an object or creature, whereas polymorph spells transform the target entirely. Examples included the color-changing charm, levitation charm, and happiness charm. After studying, Ethan received a revelation, recognizing the limitations of the world's magic system and comparing it to the arcane magic system, which he found more systematic. He began to classify spells using the arcane system and developed an attribute template to assess his and others' attributes. Name: Ethan Green, race human. Level: LV1, wizard scion attributes: strength 6, physiques, agility 8, intelligence 14, perception 12, 14. Specialties: unparalleled comprehension, psychic power LV1, magic LV1. Spells: first level, conceal thoughts, charm humans passive, talk with animals passive. 4th level, dimensional anchor. Ethan's ability to deduce the arcane magic system and attribute panel from just an outline demonstrated his exceptional comprehension. This new understanding marked a significant departure from the Harry Potter magic system, offering a more refined classification and systematic approach to magic. From a horizontal perspective, arcane magic is categorized into 8 schools: protection, focusing on defense and resistance; conjuration, which includes summoning, teleportation, and creation; prophecy, dedicated to revealing information and foreseeing the future; charm control system, which manipulates others' thoughts and actions; evocation system, that harnesses magical energy, illusion system, aimed at deceiving the senses and minds, necromantic system, controlling life and death, and the transformation system, altering the inherent properties of objects. Vertically, the complexity of arcane magic is ranked from levels 0 to 9, ascending in difficulty, with legendary spells surpassing level 9. Additionally, the supermagic system exists to amplify the effects of individual spells by increasing their casting complexity. This framework forms a comprehensive system. However, what Ethan has grasped so far is merely the outline, the basic structure. He is confident that with time, as his exploration of magic deepens and his understanding evolves, he will successfully integrate the spells from the Harry Potter universe with this system, introducing the unique aspects of arcane magic into this world. Such a fusion will undoubtedly revolutionize the entire magical realm. After meditating on this new system, Ethan resumed his study with standard spells elementary, embarking on the detailed learning of specific spells. He understands that transforming the magic system in this world begins with mastering each spell individually. As the Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day approach, a special offer is announced. Recharge 100 and receive 500 VIP points. This promotion, running from September 29th to October 6th, encourages participants to seize the opportunity. Chapter 6, The First Spell. The first spell recorded in the textbook was the Wand Lighting Charm. As the simplest kind of luminous spell, the Wand Lighting Charm enables the wand's tip to glow brightly, illuminating the surroundings and allowing one to see clearly in the dark. However, caution is advised when using this charm to avoid setting the wand on fire and causing irreversible damage. You have learned the Wand Illuminating spell. Given your proficiency in arcane magic, you understand the core concept of the illuminating spell and have made upgrades. Your lighting charm is upgraded to the Dancing Light charm. Dancing Light spell. You can ignite a small light at the tip of the wand, illuminating an area of up to 30 meters. This light can be controlled to fly freely within a certain range. Ethan took out his wand, turned off the light, and began to cast the spell as he understood it. Fluorescent flash! Instantly, the tip of his wand emitted a white light, flickering brightly. Yes, the difficulty of casting spells is almost the same as that of the original version, and the magical energy consumption is similar. The upgrade does not affect the efficiency, Ethan noted as he took out a notebook and recorded his observations with a pen. It looks much brighter than in the movie and can completely replace an incandescent bulb. With a thought, he adjusted the magical output, and the light dimmed instantly, transitioning from the brightness of an incandescent lamp to a flashlight, and then to the soft glow of a firefly. It felt like something straight out of a movie, but it wasn't enough. Next, let's test the new capabilities. As he focused, the bright light detached from the wand and began to orbit around Ethan, like a flying firefly. Under his control, the light's flight path grew increasingly complex, starting with a simple circle, then forming the figure 8, and finally tracing out Ethan's signature. It's not difficult to control, and it can even be set to automatically orbit. After a moment of contemplation, he dimmed the brightness of the small light ball, opened the window, and directed the light ball to fly outside. The orphanage was situated in a secluded area, and there was no one outside at the moment, so the unusual sight on the second floor went unnoticed. Even if someone did catch a glimpse, the dimly lit ball could easily be mistaken for a firefly. So, fly and let me see how far you can go, Ethan said as he watched the light ball drift away. It traveled 5 meters, then 10 meters, and 15 meters, before finally extinguishing after about 20 meters due to the insufficient energy supply. Well, for the first use, it can fly up to 20 meters away from the wand. With more practice, it might go even farther. In short, this dancing lights technique, without increasing the difficulty of casting, far surpasses the original illumination technique in terms of functionality and controllability, Ethan concluded with satisfaction. Inventing a spell on the first try and succeeding is a testament to my genius. Ethan continued to practice and test the dancing lights technique. After dozens of attempts, he became completely proficient, capable of controlling the light to fly as far as 30 meters. However, he also felt his magical energy depleting. Let's call it a day. Being able to invent the dancing lights on the first day is quite an achievement, Ethan thought, filled with boundless excitement for the magical world. Exhausted, he fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Ethan bid farewell to the reluctant Mother Superior and boarded the bus to London. Surrey, being adjacent to London, was not far, and after an hour's ride, Ethan arrived at the door of the Leaky Cauldron. Even in the early morning, the place was shrouded in darkness, making Ethan, who had just mastered the dancing light technique, wish he could illuminate the area with dozens of dancing lights. In addition to magic itself, the world of Harry Potter is rich with alchemy, magical item manufacturing, and other industries, all of which Ethan was eager to explore. Making magic items essentially involves inlaying magic gems, engraving magic patterns, and other techniques to imbue items with magic. In the Harry Potter world, knowledge about this is quite fragmented. Not all spells can be made permanent, and the methods and costs for achieving permanency vary greatly, making it a particularly challenging skill to master. However, in the system of arcane magic, almost any spell can be made permanent. The cost of making a spell permanent is generally related to the complexity of the magic circle spells involved. Making high-level spells permanent is very costly, but a mage with some training can easily make a zero-level spell like dancing lights permanent. In contrast, the Harry Potter world lacks a permanent version of the wand illumination spell. The closest equivalent is Goublet Fairy Fire, an enchanted flame that can burn indefinitely. However, due to the high difficulty of casting this spell, few wizards can create it. Moreover, while dancing lights produces a cold light, fairy fire is an actual flame, which is less suitable for indoor use due to smoke and fire hazards. Ethan, pondering these differences, quickly devised a series of plans to make money by creating magic items, particularly magic lamps using the permanent dancing light spell. However, as a new student, he realized it was too early to start on this venture. Upon approaching the counter, the bar owner, Tom, recognized him immediately. "Oh, you're the new student from yesterday. What was your name?" "Ethan Green, right?" Tom was impressed by the handsome, yellow-skinned boy before him. "Yes, Mr. Tom, just call me Ethan," Ethan replied politely. "I need a place to stay until school starts, but I'm short on funds. Could you tell me how much the cheapest room is? And, if possible, do you need a part-time waiter?" Tom hesitated, considering Ethan's request and his apparent financial situation. "Well, I hadn't thought about hiring a waiter, but—" Seeing Ethan's old clothes and his hopeful expression, Tom felt compelled to help. "Actually, there's a utility room in my tavern that's quite empty. You can stay there for free, in exchange for cleaning it daily after your shift or before work starts. I'll also throw in a bacon sandwich for breakfast each morning. How does that sound?" Ethan gratefully accepted the offer. "Thank you so much, Mr. Tom. You are indeed a gentleman." With his natural charm and the charming human spell, Ethan knew he could easily handle the cleaning with a simple wave of his wand, making the job hardly a burden at all. The utility room was small, barely accommodating a mattress and a table, but Ethan was content. After settling in, he donned his second-hand wizard robe and headed to Diagon Alley, eager to explore potential part-time job opportunities now that his accommodation issue was resolved. Chapter 7. Finding a job in Diagon Alley. How does a young wizard who hasn't yet started school secure a good job in Diagon Alley? The first option to dismiss is Gringotts. Given the wizard's tendency to shun book learning and ensnare scholars, Ethan's mathematical prowess from his previous life as a science and engineering enthusiast could outmatch over 95% of wizards instantly. His skills would more than qualify him for a position as an accountant or cashier at Gringotts. However, gaining the goblins' trust at Gringotts would be a challenge. Other places like Partridge's Crucible Shop and the Quidditch Boutique were also unsuitable. These stores sold large items, from crucibles to broomsticks, requiring physical labor that Ethan's slight build wasn't suited for. After a process of elimination, several potential workplaces remained. A pharmacy selling various ingredients and potions, the Elop's Owl Emporium, Flourish and Blott's bookstore where he had previously purchased second-hand books, Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor popular among young wizards, Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions, and the Diagon Alley stationery shop. Among these, Flourish and Blots was his top choice, primarily because it offered the chance to read books for free. However, Ethan's preference was one-sided. The reality was that he chose the store, but the store didn't choose him. They cited his young age as a reason for ineligibility. It was surprising to find such law-abiding attitudes in a society that, in many ways, still mirrored the Muggle world of a century ago. Ethan's job search hit a dead end until he stumbled upon the magical creature shop amidst a commotion. A crowd had gathered at the entrance, drawn by the noise inside. Out of boredom and curiosity, Ethan ventured in and witnessed a scene of chaos. A female clerk was frantically trying to capture a niffler from a large cage, while a well-dressed man with a top hat looked on impatiently. Nifflers, with their long snouts and black fur, resembled a cross between a platypus and a mole. Known for their gentle nature and proficiency in digging, they were irresistibly drawn to shiny objects, often causing havoc in their quest. The clerk was struggling to identify the niffler responsible for stealing a customer's pocket watch among the 6 in the cage. After finally catching one and finding only a silver coin in its pouch, her frustration was palpable. The niffler's similar appearances made it impossible for her to distinguish one from another. Observing the clerk's futile efforts, Ethan couldn't help but smile, not out of schadenfreude, but because he saw an opportunity to offer his help. He approached the clerk and said, "Hello, my name is Ethan Green. Perhaps I can help you with your problem." The clerk, preoccupied with retrieving the customer's pocket watch, was taken aback by Ethan's sudden interruption. Upon turning around, her irritation was immediately halved at the sight of a cute little boy calling her. She forced a smile and said, "Ahem, hello, Mr. Green. I'm happy to assist you, but as you can see, I'm currently occupied. Could we possibly discuss this later?" However, Ethan shook his head, clarifying, "You've misunderstood. I'm not here for services. Instead, I offer my assistance." "What kind of help are you referring to?" the female clerk asked, puzzled. "I can help you find Shu Shu, the one who stole the pocket watch," Ethan explained. The clerk eyed him skeptically. "I appreciate your willingness to help, but you're quite young. I wouldn't want you to get hurt." "You're overthinking it," Ethan replied with a confident smile. "I don't need to physically search to identify the thief." He then approached the cage and addressed the creatures inside. "Hey, little guys, who recently acquired a new item?" To onlookers, Ethan appeared to be merely chirping, a sound so authentic it resembled that of a real sniff. This demonstration of his animal conversation ability left the clerk speechless and halted her attempt to intervene. The sniffs inside the cage were equally astonished, wondering if the large creature before them could actually speak their language. Despite their confusion, they honestly answered Ethan's question. Turning back to the clerk, Ethan pointed out, "The thief is this little one, identifiable by a broken finger on its left front paw." The clerk, still doubtful, picked up the sniff and turned it upside down, resulting in a gold pocket watch falling from its pouch. "Yes, that's it! My pocket watch! It was the best gift Malin ever gave me," exclaimed a wizard in the crowd, who then carefully stored the watch away, thanked Ethan, and left the shop. After the crowd dispersed, the grateful clerk took Ethan's hand, thanking him profusely. "You've been a great help," she said, then curiously asked, "How did you manage to mimic a sniff's call and identify the thief so accurately? Can you actually communicate with sniffs?" Ethan shook his head, then nodded. "Sort of. I have a talent that allows me to sense the emotions of small animals." He chose not to fully disclose his animal conversation ability, instead offering a simplified explanation. The clerk was amazed. "Oh my gosh, you have a talent similar to Mr. Newt Scamander's." Newt Scamander, a renowned magical zoologist and author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, was well known for his ability to communicate with magical creatures. Ethan's partial concealment of his abilities was deliberate, aiming to avoid the skepticism that might come with claiming full communicative abilities, which involve complex logic and language. After hearing Ethan's explanation, the clerk, Hayden Trist, introduced herself and offered her gratitude. "Thank you for resolving this issue. If you ever need any magical animals or supplies, feel free to come to me. I can offer you a 10% discount within my authority." "It's okay," Ethan replied, feigning generosity before giving her an innocent look. By the way, do you need any part-time help? This text does not appear to be part of a novel or narrative and seems to be promotional content. Could you please provide a passage from the novel you'd like to have enhanced? Chapter 8. So the favor you just owed must be repaid so soon? Hayden Tryst was initially confused. She realized she might have trapped herself with her own offer. However, upon seeing the boy's sweet smile, the female clerk's reservations vanished. After all, working alongside such a handsome and talented boy who shared the same affinity for magical creatures as the renowned Newt Scamander seemed like a promising opportunity. It would undoubtedly be convenient for someone like him to take care of magical animals. Thus, Ethan found his first job, taking care of animals at the magical creatures shop. Given it was a part-time position, the working hours varied from 3 to 5 hours daily, contingent upon the completion of the day's tasks. The pay was 3 sickles per day, which, when considering the wizarding world's complex currency conversion rates, 1 galleon equals 17 sickles, 1 sickle equals 29 nuts, wasn't too shabby for a child laborer. Ethan calculated that he would earn approximately 5 galleons and 8 sickles in a month, enough to recoup the cost of his wand in just 2 months. So let's start with cleaning the animals, the clerk instructed, demonstrating with her wand on a cage housing a cat. Cleaned up. Instantly, all the cat hair and feces flew into a bucket, leaving the cage spotless. Now you try it, Mr. Green, the store manager encouraged, handing Ethan the wand. Ethan, demonstrating his remarkable aptitude, successfully cast the spell on his first attempt on another cage, this time containing an erumpent, leaving the clerk momentarily speechless. You learn quite fast. Have you used this spell before at home? Okay, next, we'll learn the cyclone cleaning spell. Unlike the descaling spell, this one is more effective for liquid waste. Ethan's first day at work was filled with learning and practice under Hayden's guidance, and it wasn't until 4 in the afternoon that he finished his tasks and returned to the leaky cauldron. How did your day go, kid? Old Tom inquired with genuine concern. Great, Mr. Tom. I got a job, Ethan replied with a bright smile. Ah, that's wonderful. Tom nodded, handing Ethan a glass of butterbeer to celebrate his first job. So what job did you find? Tom asked after Ethan took a hearty gulp of the butterbeer. I'm working part-time at the Fantastic Beasts store. Fantastic Beasts, that's great. But what exactly do you do there? Feeding, grooming, cleaning, basically everything. But the most crucial task is cleaning their cages. These creatures are quite messy, often dirtying themselves with their own feces. That doesn't sound like a pleasant job, Old Tom commented, picturing the grim working conditions. For a young wizard like me who hasn't started school yet, it's perfect. I've learned a lot about magical animals and even picked up several new spells. As he spoke, Ethan waved his wand, saying, cleaned up. A previously unclean desktop became spotless in an instant. This will make my job here with Mr. Tom much easier. Ah, this kid is still eager for the job I gave him, Old Tom thought, finding himself growing fond of Ethan. Despite his young age, Ethan was mature, optimistic, and proactive in facing challenges without casting blame. Such qualities hinted at a promising future. Thus began Ethan's part-time career at the Magical Beast Caravan, a job filled with tedious and challenging tasks, but also a unique opportunity to learn and grow amidst a variety of magical creatures, such as color-changing giants. Snails, fire crabs, black mice, owls, ravens, cats of various colors, velvet ferrets, deformed rabbits, and more. Each animal has its own unique dietary and living habits, necessitating tailored care and feeding routines. For most people, memorizing the preferences of each species would be a daunting task. However, one of the advantages of Ethan's exceptional intellect is his remarkable memory. Remembering what different animals eat is as simple for him as knowing whether water is warm or cold by tasting it. He could easily discern if the animals were scurrying, satisfied, or in need of something. Consequently, the shop assistant at the Magical Beast shop quickly recognized Ethan's capabilities, praising his work and asserting that his skills were on par with those of fully fledged adult wizards. Yet, Ethan was not content with just this recognition. Completing his daily tasks at the Magical Beast shop within 2 to 3 hours left Ethan with ample time to seek out more challenging endeavors. The wizarding world, with its relatively small population and less developed society compared to the urbanized Muggle world, operates largely on personal acquaintances and endorsements rather than formal records. Ethan quickly learned the value of a good endorsement. After receiving high praise from Hayden Trace, a clerk at the Fantastic Beasts store, other shops on the street began to welcome him. This led to Ethan securing jobs at Flourish and Blott's bookstore and Slug and Jigger's apothecary. These positions not only increased his daily earnings to 8 sickles, but also exposed him to knowledge not readily available in books. At Slug and Jigger's apothecary, Ethan gained a foundational understanding of potion making. He learned how to prepare basic ingredients, such as slicing, grinding into powder, and juicing. This experience also introduced him to the cutting spell. Ethan was confident that by the end of the summer, he would be well prepared to excel in future potions classes, free from any issues with the old bat of a teacher. Additionally, he encountered advanced potion ingredients like double-horned animal horns, soundless bird feathers, and African tree snake skins. While he only learned about their properties and uses, handling them was beyond his current means, as purchasing such materials would require more than a year's worth of wages. Working at the apothecary was dirty and tedious, similar to his job at the magical beast shop. Each day, Ethan left the apothecary smelling of an odd mix of substances, from slug mucus to amphora juice, necessitating multiple cleanings to rid himself of the odors. In contrast, his job at Flourish and Blott's bookstore was much cleaner. Ethan's responsibilities primarily involved organizing books, such as retrieving specific titles from the warehouse to display on shelves, or locating obscure books for customers. The work was straightforward, and Ethan even had the opportunity to read a few books after his shifts. However, it was the unexpected discovery of several new spells that truly delighted him. Scribe. This spell allows for copying a document into another book. Reading magic enables the understanding of magical writing on books and objects. Language proficiency grants the ability to comprehend what creatures say or to read otherwise incomprehensible text messages. It does not work on texts with special powers, such as dragon language or abyssal text. Scholar's Touch. With this spell, one can absorb the knowledge contained in a book as if they had read it. These spells were relatively easy to learn. Language proficiency enabled Ethan to understand all common languages, making those who pride themselves on their linguistic skills seem lacking in comparison. Reading magic allowed Ethan to delve into the magical inscriptions found on books and artifacts, opening up a new realm of knowledge for him to explore. Ethan discovered he had an extraordinary ability to understand all kinds of magical texts, a skill that could only be described as a student's dream come true. The Scholar's Touch allowed Ethan to store knowledge directly in his mind without the need to spend time reading. This was akin to quantum wave speed reading. However, this storage was just that, storage. To fully comprehend and master the information, he would need to dedicate more time to it. But this was sufficient for him. With this unparalleled understanding, coupled with skills like proficient in language and reading magic, Scholar's Touch became a passive skill for Ethan, similar to Charm Humanity. It became an ability he could use without actively casting it. Following this revelation, Ethan grew even more fond of his job at Flourish and Blott's. He realized he only needed to touch the books to store their contents in his mind. This ability was incredibly convenient and led Ethan to spend his days circling the bookshelves like a scanner, eager to store all the knowledge from the bookstore in his mind. He even contemplated quitting his other 2 part-time jobs to focus solely on Flourish and Blott's bookstore. However, with the summer vacation still stretching out before him, he had ample time to scan books and ultimately decided quitting his other jobs. As Ethan continued to work, time flew by, and before he knew it, the beginning of the school year was upon him. Amidst this, there was a special announcement, a Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day Family Feedback promotion. By recharging 100, customers could receive 500 VIP points. This promotion, running from September 29th to October 6th, was an opportunity Ethan noted, considering the benefits it could offer. Chapter 9. In the eyes of Tom Abbott, the proprietor of the Leaky Cauldron, the young wizard he had kindly taken under his wing was nothing short of remarkable. Despite his tender age, Ethan lived independently outside, juggling 4 jobs daily. Unlike his peers, he showed little interest in the usual pastimes of eating and playing, dedicating himself instead to reading. Such self-discipline and perseverance were rare, even among adult wizards. Tom himself admitted he couldn't match it. What stood out most about Ethan was not just his diligence, but his exceptional magical talent. Over the past 2 months, Tom had taught him 4 spells: the levitation charm, the hover charm, the aguamenti charm, and the mending charm. Ethan mastered each spell after a single demonstration. This was particularly impressive considering his Muggle origins, meaning he had no prior wizarding education before receiving his Hogwarts letter. Yet, his abilities surpassed those of many half-blood and even pure-blood wizards. Tom had never encountered such a gifted young wizard before. As a result, Ethan's treatment in the leaky cauldron improved. In addition to his morning bacon sandwich, Tom occasionally treated him to snacks. During this time, Ethan also met Tom Abbott's daughter, Hannah Abbott, a cheerful girl with blonde hair and rosy cheeks. Ethan was surprised to learn she was the daughter of the leaky cauldron's owner. Over the 2 months, Ethan and Hannah became friends. As the first day of school drew near, Ethan quit several of his part-time jobs. His hard work over 2 months had earned him 25 galleons, with which he purchased a new robe from Madame Malkin's for formal occasions and a brass folding telescope from Wiseacre's wizarding equipment. He didn't need to buy a cauldron, as the owners of Slug and Jigger's apothecary had gifted him a sturdy old one, and Hayden Trist from the Magical Menagerie had given him a messenger owl, which Ethan named Hemo in memory of his past life. Before school started, Ethan checked his attribute panel for the last time. Name, Ethan Green, race human, level LV2 wizard LV1 scion, attributes, strength 7, constitution 7, agility 8, intelligence 14, perception 12, charisma 14, expertise, exceptional comprehension, psychic power LV1, magical power LV2, magic resistance LV1. Spells level 0, magic detection, constant, softening charm, whirlwind cleaning spell, levitation charm, dancing lights, duplication, levitation charm. Level 1, occlumency, severing charm, human charm, constant, speak with animals, constant, comprehend languages, scholar's touch. Level 2, healing charm. Level 4, dimensional anchor. After 2 months of relentless magical practice, Ethan had advanced a level as a wizard, improving his magical abilities and gaining basic magic resistance. His strength and constitution had increased, thanks to a nutritious diet and a growing repertoire of spells. With a dozen gold galleons in his pocket, Ethan's 2 months had been incredibly fulfilling. Seeing Ethan off as he pulled his suitcase to leave, Tom Abbott felt a surge of emotion. It seemed like only yesterday when the slender wizard had inquired about the cheapest room. In just 2 months, Ethan had not only grown stronger, but also taller. Tom was relieved he had purchased a larger-sized wizard robe, otherwise it might not have fit. "Boy, make sure you study hard at Hogwarts and don't waste your talents," Tom called out from behind the counter. Ethan waved back, then left the leaky cauldron. By 10:30, he arrived at King's Cross Station, laden with his trunk, cauldron, books, and owl cage. For an 11-year-old, managing all his belongings was a challenge. He made a silent vow to learn the undetectable extension charm as soon as possible, knowing that spell would undoubtedly transform his travel experience. Ethan Green skillfully located Platform 9 and Platform 10, noting the space between them was empty except for a few pillars. He counted to the 3rd pillar, reached out, and touched it, finding it solid. This confirmed his theory that only by reaching a certain speed could one travel through time. With determination, Ethan pushed his suitcase and charged toward the brick pillar with a momentum that could only be described as reckless. In an instant, the world around him transformed. Time seemed to rewind, transporting him back 100 years to an era of retro platforms, vintage clothing, and white smoke wafting through the air. Beside the platform, crowded with passengers, stood a dark red steam locomotive. A sign on the train announced Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Despite the early hour, Ethan hurried onto the train, curious about the experience of riding with a crowd of students. However, he quickly realized the overwhelming noise. the laughter and chatter of friends, the tearful goodbyes to parents, and the hustle of stowing luggage. "You are Ethan Green," a voice filled with surprise called out from behind him. Ethan turned to see a familiar face. Curly black hair, glasses, and a rather handsome appearance. It was none other than his elementary school classmate, Harry Potter. Ethan had always thought their shared name was a mere coincidence until receiving the letter from Hogwarts. Now, seeing Harry up close, he couldn't deny the resemblance to the famed savior. "Hello, Harry. It's quite unexpected to meet you here," Ethan managed, feigning surprise. "Give me a moment, please." "Thank you," Harry said, maneuvering his suitcase through the crowd. "Great, Ethan. I had no idea you were a wizard, too." Harry's excitement was palpable, as if Ethan were not just a former classmate, but a long-lost friend. Ethan understood that for Harry, who had lost his parents, stepping into this strange new world was daunting. Finding a familiar face provided a sense of comfort, much like how college freshmen seek out peers from their hometown. "I didn't expect to meet you here either," when Ethan replied, lifting his suitcase. "Why don't we find an empty compartment to sit in? It might get crowded later." The two found a compartment towards the back of the train and settled in. Harry, unable to contain his curiosity, asked, "When did you find out you were a wizard?" "I once turned my teacher's wig blue and accidentally opened the reptile house at the zoo, but I didn't know I was a wizard until this summer. Those were all magic. I discovered as a child that I could move objects with my mind. Like you, I didn't realize it was magic until this summer," Ethan shared, connecting over their experiences. "Maybe we can hang out during the summer vacation," Harry suggested, clearly looking forward to the idea of having a friend with similar abilities. "No problem at all," Ethan agreed, though his response was half-hearted. He was more focused on studying and mastering magic, aspiring to become even more powerful than Dumbledore. The adventurous escapades of the original story's hero held little appeal to him. As their conversation about Harry Potter's experiences flowed, Ethan remained politely engaged. Suddenly, the train jolted, signaling the start of their journey from London to the Scottish Highlands. Please remember to support the story, leave comments, and thank you for any rewards. It seems there was a misunderstanding in your request. You've provided a promotional message, rather than a portion of a novel for editing. Could you please share the text from the novel that you would like to have enhanced? Chapter 10 finally arrived. Just at that moment, there was a knock on the door. The sliding door opened, revealing a little red-haired boy who poked his head in. "Is anyone sitting here?" he asked, gesturing towards the seat next to Harry. "Everywhere else is full." Harry and Ethan shook their heads, indicating the seat was available. The boy entered with a hint of shyness, and after stowing his luggage, immediately turned his gaze to the window, seemingly lost in his own world. It wasn't until he overheard Ethan introduce himself to Harry that he joined their conversation. "My name is Ron Weasley. Are you really Harry Potter?" he asked, turning towards Harry with wide eyes. Ethan thought to himself, Ron Weasley, one of Hermione's two closest friends. Despite everything, these two have still met on the train. Could this be fate? "Then do you really have, Ron said, pointing towards Harry's forehead. Harry skillfully moved a lock of hair aside to reveal the lightning-shaped scar. This was a gesture he had become accustomed to, yet Ethan was one of the few who didn't obsess over it. "Was that done by you-know-who?" Ron asked, eyes wide with curiosity. "Yes," Harry replied, "but I don't remember much about it." "Don't remember anything?" Ron pressed, eager for details. "I just recall a bright green light and nothing else," Harry admitted. "It's remarkable that you can even remember the green light. Most people can't recall their infancy," Ethan added. "Speaking of which, I've heard there's a sorting ceremony at Hogwarts. Muggle schools don't have anything like that." The conversation shifted away from the past, a mutual decision to avoid dredging up painful memories. When the topic turned to Hogwarts and the sorting ceremony, Ron's interest was piqued. "I think I'll be sorted into Gryffindor. My whole family was," Ron said, a hint of worry in his voice. "I can't imagine being anywhere else, especially not Slytherin." "Is that the house you-know-who was in?" Harry asked. Ron nodded. "Yes, so I've been hoping they don't make a mistake." Ethan reassured him. "I've heard the sorting takes your personal desires into account. If you're set on Gryffindor, that's likely where you'll end up. Really? Ron seemed skeptical. I've heard from George and Fred about a difficult and dangerous test, but they wouldn't tell me what it involves. Ethan smiled. It's a tradition. You'll find out soon enough. Ron's expression turned to one of mock despair. Riddle me this. Get out of Hogwarts. As Ron learned that Ethan and Harry were not well versed in the magical world, he took it upon himself to educate them, though his lessons often veered into personal grievances. He lamented his second-hand broom, which was so slow it couldn't outpace a butterfly, and the fact that all his possessions were hand-me-downs, his wand from his brother Charlie, his robes from Bill, and even his wizard chess set, a family heirloom that seemed to think he was his grandfather. His pet rat, Scabbers, was originally his brother Percy's. Ethan glanced at Scabbers, then shared his own circumstances. You're not alone in feeling that way. I'm in a similar boat. Aside from my wand, everything I own was bought second-hand. I have no family and will be paying off student loans after graduation. Ron quickly apologized for his complaints, but Ethan noticed Ethan's face showed a marked improvement, and his earlier resentment had vanished entirely. It brought to mind the saying, I fear for my brothers facing hardships, but I also envy them when they succeed. The contrast between situations indeed breeds a sense of superiority. As the train journeyed on, the landscape outside the window transitioned from vast expanses of farmland to patches of dense forests, meandering rivers, and dark green hills. It was only when the sky had darkened completely that Ron ceased his chatter. In this aspect, Harry proved to be an excellent listener, if one could overlook his own incessant talking. Perhaps as a form of rebellion against the neglect he suffered at the Dursleys, Harry indulged in a spree of revenge spending upon boarding the train. The table was littered with snack bags, and a stack of chocolate frog cards lay in front of him, several of which featured Dumbledore. Whether this was considered good luck or bad luck remained to be seen. Hurry up and put on your robe. I just asked a senior, and the train will be arriving soon. Ethan pushed open the carriage door, urging the two newfound friends. He found Ron's chattiness unbearable and was curious about the original characters, prompting him to take a walk. During this time, he encountered a girl with bushy hair searching for Neville's toad. This was Hermione, the final member of the trio. She was as adorable as her portrayal in the films, her only flaw being her temper. As an adult, Ethan could see that her demeanor stemmed from her strength. In the Muggle world, Hermione was celebrated as a bright and studious student, a title she wore with pride. However, upon entering the magical world, her previous arrogance was unsustainable. Without knowing the capabilities of others, her pride morphed into insecurity. Her domineering facade was merely a defense mechanism to protect her self-esteem. Once she reaffirmed her status as the top student at Hogwarts, this protective shell would naturally fall away. Since becoming a scion, Ethan had grown increasingly adept at discerning others' thoughts, confident in his future mastery of legilimency. He effortlessly used the levitation spell to help Hermione find Neville's toad. At this stage, he had no interest in forming a close relationship with the know-it-all Hermione. Being ordinary friends was sufficient for now. Any further developments would have to wait a few years when Hermione was more vulnerable and open to influence. Ethan, you're back! You missed it. We had a run-in with Malfoy. If you were here, we would have thrashed them, Ron lamented. Harry nodded in agreement, knowing his friend's prowess in a fight from their elementary school days. Ethan remained indifferent. Should Malfoy provoke him, he wouldn't hesitate to teach the ignorant youth a lesson. For these first-year wizards, unfamiliar with spells, his fists were sufficient. The group quickly shed their coats for black robes. Ron's old robe was notably short, revealing his sneakers. It seemed none of Ron's brothers had been as tall as him in their first year. Ron was visibly embarrassed, but Ethan found the shorter robe practical for movement, eliminating the risk of tripping over the hem. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train, and it will be transported to the school for you, announced the train speaker system. We're almost there, the wizarding world, and I'm a part of it, Ethan thought, a sense of anticipation building within him. Little nervous, Harry said dryly, clutching his stomach and looking distinctly uncomfortable. He wasn't alone in his nervousness. Even Ron, a pureblood, had a face that turned pale beneath his freckles. He too remembered the horrifying details his twin brothers had shared with him about the sorting process. Amidst this anxious atmosphere, the train gradually slowed down and eventually came to a stop. Pictured in Hermione's mind were the countless scenarios she had read about in her books. However, none seemed to prepare her for the reality of what was to come. Chapter 11. Passengers jostled and hurried, making their way toward the door and descending to a small, dimly lit platform. The night's chill made Harry shiver, standing beside Ethan. Suddenly, a light swung above the students' heads, and a rough voice bellowed, "Freshmen! Freshmen! Come over here! Harry, how are you?" Amid the throng of people, Hagrid's bearded face emerged, greeting them with a so-called whisper. Ethan thought the half-giant looked rather foolish, but most of the young wizards were intimidated by his enormous stature. After all, these students hadn't read the original Harry Potter books. Following Hagrid along a narrow path, they were greeted by the sight of a black lake, with a majestic castle standing on the hillside across the water, its spires towering and windows twinkling under the starlight. They had arrived at the lake, where a row of small canoes awaited them. Moss covered the stones beside the black lake, and Hagrid loudly cautioned the freshmen, "Be careful where you step. Don't slip." No sooner had he spoken than two students nearly lost their footing and almost tumbled into the lake. "No more than 4 people per boat," Hagrid announced, pointing to the small boats moored along the shore. Due to the rush, Ron had already been taken aboard by others, while Ethan quickly claimed another boat, with Harry climbing in shortly after. Neville and Hermione, relieved by Ethan's assistance, followed suit. "Are you all on board?" Hagrid shouted. The giant had to board a boat by himself due to his size. "Then let's move forward." At his command, the fleet of small boats glided across the mirror-like surface of the lake. Ethan remembered the mermaids rumored to inhabit this vast black lake. Legend had it that mermaids were as beautiful as flowers, but those native to the Black Lake were an exception. Their appearance was far from graceful, perhaps due to the diversity among merfolk, including various types like yellow, white, and agricultural. Moreover, the Black Lake housed a giant squid of unknown origin, rumored to be Godric Gryffindor, afflicted by a blood curse. Turning this corner, you'll soon see Hogwarts for the first time. Hagrid's voice suddenly pulled Ethan from his thoughts. As they rounded the cliff, the castle's outline, adorned with lights, came into view. The closer they got, the more imposing the castle appeared, its majesty amplified by the light's reflection. Hermione whispered, "Every new student takes this path. It's said to let us experience the hardships the founders of Hogwarts faced in locating the castle." Perhaps there are deeper meanings, Ethan mused. Having mastered arcane magic, he sensed the essence of power hidden within the castle's magical aura. He felt a vast reservoir of magical power within the castle, and an inexplicable connection forming between him and the fortress. This tradition, followed by the new students, seemed to be an ancient ritualistic magic. Completing this journey signified signing a contract with Hogwarts, officially becoming a student of the school. As the fleet neared the cliff beneath the castle, the structure seemed to loom over them. "Bow!" Hagrid commanded as the first boats approached the cliff. Everyone ducked their heads, the boats carrying them through an ivy-covered curtain at the cliff's front to a concealed entrance. It was then the young wizards realized that Hagrid was the only one who truly needed to duck. They followed a dark tunnel, which seemed to lead directly into the heart of the castle. Beneath the castle, the group finally arrived at a location resembling an underground dock before ascending to a surface covered in gravel and pebbles. Hagrid, holding his lantern aloft, announced, "Everyone, come down, follow me closely." The freshmen disembarked from the boat and ascended a flight of over 200 steep stairs, reaching an open square framed by columns. At the square's end stood the gates of Hogwarts. Hagrid advanced, his fist the size of a sandbag, and knocked thrice with resounding boom, boom, boom. The thickness of the door was evident from the sound. The door swung open to reveal Ethan's old acquaintance, Professor McGonagall, who welcomed them. Professor McGonagall briefed everyone on the 4 houses of Hogwarts and announced that the sorting ceremony would commence shortly. She also discussed the significance of the house cup and points, emphasizing the importance of honor. After Professor McGonagall returned to the auditorium, a buzz of conversation erupted among the students. Regardless of their backgrounds, whether Muggle-born or pureblood, anxiety was palpable. Opinions on the sorting ceremony varied widely. It seemed the adults were keen not to spoil this rite of passage, recognizing it as a valuable experience for growth. How could they accurately assign us to a house? Harry wondered aloud. No matter what happens, we won't be allowed to drop out, Ethan offered, attempting to comfort him, though his words seemed to heighten the tension. Personally, Ethan found the tradition intriguing, especially witnessing the nervous anticipation of others. It's probably a test, and Fred said it would be quite painful, but I think he was joking, Ron said, looking terrified. Hermione, meanwhile, had already started nervously reciting textbook knowledge, fearing an entrance exam might be part of the sorting ceremony. Don't worry, you won't be tested on algebra and trigonometry, Ethan joked, earning an eye roll in response. For Ethan, there was little to worry about. As a psychic, he had mastered the spell, Hidden Thoughts, which, when actively cast, could shield his mind as effectively as the most potent occlusion techniques. He used this spell almost constantly, given the multitude of secrets concealed within his mind. Attracting Dumbledore's attention was preferable to having his time travel secrets exposed. In a world filled with geniuses, Ethan's preference wasn't for Gryffindor. By carefully controlling hidden thoughts, he could selectively block memories, allowing only the aspects he wished to be seen during legilimency. As Ethan pondered which qualities to reveal and which house he might be assigned to, Harry suddenly leaped up, followed by loud screams from behind. It turned out that the school's ghosts had decided to welcome the new students with a scare. About 20 pearly-white, translucent ghosts emerged from the wall behind them, whispering among themselves and pretending to just pass by. It wasn't until the students' screams filled the air that the ghosts revealed themselves with satisfaction, floating through the walls. Professor McGonagall reappeared at the perfect moment, seemingly anticipating the ghosts' antics. She first soothed the frightened students, then commanded, "Now line up in single file and follow me." The sorting ceremony was about to begin. Chapter 12. The Grand Entrance. The doors swung open, and the freshmen, led by Professor McGonagall, entered what could only be described as the most majestic hall they had ever seen. For a moment, Ethan thought they had arrived at Litang, the highest city in the world, but no, it was the Great Hall of Hogwarts. The vast space was lined with 4 long tables, each surrounded by students of varying ages. The walls were adorned with banners representing the 4 houses, the Green Serpent of Slytherin, the Blue Eagle of Ravenclaw, the Red Lion of Gryffindor, and the Yellow Badger of Hufflepuff. However, the most enchanting feature was the ceiling. It mirrored the night sky, with stars twinkling against the velvet darkness, creating the illusion of dining under the open heavens. Among the students, ghosts floated, their forms shimmering with a silver glow. Hermione, careful not to disturb the magical ambiance, whispered, "I read about this in Hogwarts, a history." Ethan nodded in agreement. The ceiling's enchantment was designed to give the impression of an endless sky. At the far end of the hall, the professor's table was set in a semicircle, with the faculty seated in a row. Ethan, though he had never met him, immediately recognized the figure in the center with a long white beard and robes as Dumbledore. The headmaster's presence was commanding, even in a seated position, his white beard cascading down to the table. Despite his age, Dumbledore appeared vigorous and spirited. Beside him sat Snape, with his greasy hair and dour expression, and Flitwick, perched on a booster stool, likely due to his half-goblin heritage. Quirrell, with his turban, was also among them. It was surreal for Ethan to see these characters from the books and films in person, stirring a sense of excitement within him. Professor McGonagall, holding a parchment, announced, "When I call your name, please sit on the stool and place the sorting hat upon your head." Before she could continue, the sorting hat, perched on a high-backed stool, came to life. Its folds morphed into eyes and a mouth, and it began to sing a song that recounted the history and virtues of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. The first-year students, witnessing a singing hat for the first time, were understandably astonished. Ethan, while impressed, joked, "You sang well, but let's not make it a habit." After the hat's performance, Professor McGonagall resumed calling names. "Hannah Abbott?" A girl named Hannah hurried forward, her small stature barely supporting the weight of the sorting hat, which obscured her eyes. "Hufflepuff," the hat declared after a brief moment. The Hufflepuff table erupted in applause, welcoming their new member. Hannah, before taking her seat, waved at Ethan, whom she had met during the summer. One by one, familiar names were called, and each student's sorting varied in duration. Some were sorted immediately, while others took longer, a testament to the sorting hat's ability to gauge a wizard's personality, perhaps through a form of legilimency. Ethan Green. It was finally Ethan's turn, shortly after Hermione Granger was sorted into Gryffindor. He approached the stool with a calm demeanor, secretly hoping to outwit the astute sorting hat. Professor McGonagall gave Ethan a knowing look, acknowledging his humble background, unique among his peers. Ethan nodded respectfully to her, placed the hat upon his head, and sat down. As the hat settled onto his soft black hair, Ethan braced himself for the decision that would define his Hogwarts journey. Ethan held the hat with some discomfort, trying to prevent the grimy fabric from touching his face. "I sense your talent. Such potent magic is rare among young wizards of your age. Which house should I place you in?" It's a difficult choice. There seems to be a force clouding my judgment of you." Upon hearing this, Ethan subtly adjusted the shield of thoughts, cautiously opening a small gap to reveal the aspects he chose to show. For a moment, the hat seemed perplexed. "Ah, that's unexpected. I can see your intelligence, your thirst for knowledge, and your adeptness at navigating challenges. Therefore, you belong in Ravenclaw," the sorting hat announced loudly. The hall erupted in polite applause, but the Ravenclaw students clapped with genuine enthusiasm. Ethan's arrival signaled a promising addition to their house. Professor McGonagall felt a twinge of regret that Ethan wasn't sorted into Gryffindor, admiring the young wizard's independence. Ethan waved to Harry and the others before taking his seat at the Ravenclaw table. Along the way, many nodded or greeted him. Ron, amidst the crowd, whispered to Harry, "It's a shame Ethan wasn't sorted into Gryffindor." Harry whispered back, "That doesn't stop us from being friends, does it?" After sitting down, Ethan felt a sense of relief. He had successfully misled the sorting hat, concealing the secret of his rebirth. This proved the effectiveness of hidden thoughts, alleviating his concerns about being discovered. His choice of Ravenclaw was deliberate, aligning with his pursuit of knowledge. The name Ravenclaw symbolizes a greedy plunderer, indicative of a relentless quest for knowledge. The house motto and the wisdom of Rowena Ravenclaw, "Extraordinary intelligence is mankind's greatest treasure," resonated with Ethan's belief that knowledge equates to power. Despite Ravenclaw's subdued presence in the original narrative and the absence of notable students from this house, Ethan saw value in its ethos. The most celebrated figures in the series hailed from other houses, yet Ethan believed in the unique strengths of Ravenclaw. The house's reputation for wisdom and the allure of its members were added bonuses for him. His contemplation was interrupted by a round of cheers. The narrative then shifts to a hypothetical scenario. If Harry Potter had attended Dragon Kingdom University, how would he be sorted? As Harry sat under the sorting hat, it pondered. "You possess bravery and intelligence. Material science seems fitting for you." The sorting hat's voice echoed in Harry's mind, deliberating over the appropriate field of study, hinting at a blend of bravery, intelligence, and a potential inclination towards the sciences. Harry pondered silently. "Don't you want to explore biochemical environmental materials? You could achieve so much in that field." Despite his internal debate, he had made his decision. "But since you've made up your mind, the School of Civil Engineering it is." As Professor McGonagall announced the result, Harry felt as though his soul had been extracted, collapsing onto the floor in disbelief. Meanwhile, a special announcement for the Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day was made. Family feedback time. Recharge 100 and receive 500 VIP points. Don't miss out on this opportunity to grab a deposit Event time, September 29th to October 6th. Chapter 13, A New Beginning at Hogwarts. We got Potter! We got Potter! The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers as the Sorting Hat announced Harry's house. The young Gryffindors were eager to shake Harry's hand, taking pride in their new housemate. Ron, sorted into Gryffindor just before the end, received a particularly enthusiastic response from his brothers, their applause bringing a smile to his previously anxious face. Ethan glanced towards the long table next door, catching Harry and Ron's regretful looks. To Ethan, this was of little concern. His thoughts were more on Dumbledore's perspective. In Ethan's view, Dumbledore, the greatest white wizard, excelled in many areas but had a tendency to blur the lines between good and evil too sharply. This was evident in his handling of black magic, the restricted section of the library, his overt favoritism towards Harry, and the dangerous adventures he arranged for him year after year. To Ethan, Dumbledore was indeed a great wizard, but fell short as a headmaster. Living under Dumbledore's roof at Hogwarts meant Ethan couldn't avoid his influence. However, Ethan understood that Dumbledore's primary concern was the prophecy concerning Harry and Voldemort. As long as Ethan maintained a normal relationship with Harry without getting too close, Dumbledore was unlikely to see him as a threat to the prophecy's progression. Ethan had no intention of fading into the background at Hogwarts. After all, it was a place where exceptional students often received special treatment from the teachers. "Do you know Harry Potter over there?" a boy's voice suddenly asked. "Yes," Ethan replied, not elaborating further. He shifted his gaze to the speaker, a brown-haired boy whose attention was fixed on a plate of mixed fish soup. "Are you very hungry?" Ethan inquired, noting the boy's evident interest in the food. "Yes, I forgot my pocket money and didn't eat anything on the train," the boy admitted, swallowing hard. "My name is Ethan Green. Nice to meet you," Ethan said, extending his hand. "I'm Stephen Cornford." Ethan remembered the name from the original story, though Stephen had no significant role. Yet, here he was, a real person in Ethan's new world. This encounter deepened Ethan's understanding and integration into this world, making him ponder the impact of his presence. What impact will my arrival have on this world? Why haven't I noticed anything unusual? Ethan wondered, just as Albus Dumbledore stood up to address the school. In his previous life, Ethan would have prioritized eating, but at Hogwarts, the principal's speech took precedence. Dumbledore, with a smile, welcomed the students to the new school year. Before the banquet began, he offered a few peculiar words. Nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, thank you everyone. The strange welcome left many puzzled, but Ethan had heard theories about Dumbledore's unconventional messages. As the feast commenced, Ethan's thoughts lingered on the adventures and challenges that lay ahead. Hogwarts was not just a school to him. It was a new world full of possibilities, and he was determined to carve his own path, regardless of the prophecies and Dumbledore's plans. Fool refers to Ravenclaw. The wizards in this house are often the smartest and tend to view students from other houses as less intelligent. Crynose is a derogatory term used to insult and demean Gryffindor students who are less physically fit, exploiting their perceived lack of bravery. Scrap is a term Slytherin students use to describe those they consider impure or unworthy, viewing students from other houses as useless. Wrong is how Hufflepuff students are unfairly characterized, seen as neither smart nor brave, yet they have a knack for bringing everyone together. This reveals the headmaster's intention to encourage unity among the houses, though he himself struggles to achieve this. From this perspective, it was fortunate that Ethan was not sorted into Slytherin. Then, Ethan noticed Stephen beside him suddenly widen his eyes. In an instant, the previously empty long table was laden with an array of delicacies: roast beef, roast chicken, honey-glazed chicken legs, honey-glazed pork ribs, pork chops, lamb chops, steak, sausages, various potato dishes, Yorkshire pudding, vegetables, broths, pumpkin juice, orange juice, and an assortment of pies and peppermint candies. The abundance of food immediately brightened the atmosphere, with everyone engaging in lively conversation. Stephen began to eat voraciously, and Ethan was equally enthusiastic. For Ethan, this was the most lavish meal he had enjoyed since his time travel. Midway through the meal, Stephen curiously asked, "Ethan, why are you using two wands to eat?" The other students looked on in confusion. Ethan replied, "These aren't magic wands, they're chopsticks. As a Chinese, it's natural for me to use chopsticks." He pointed to a beautiful Asian senior, Zhang Chu, who confirmed, "Ethan is correct. My mother also taught me to eat with chopsticks at home." The meal lasted about half an hour. Just as Ethan was patting his satisfied belly, the leftovers vanished and dessert appeared. There were puddings of various flavors, ice cream, cakes, fried jam donuts, wine-soaked jam pudding, strawberries, jelly, rice pudding. Ethan and Stephen groaned, having already filled their stomachs, yet faced with more tempting desserts. During dessert, a commotion erupted at the Gryffindor table when their ghost, nearly headless Nick, emerged, startling the students. After dessert, Dumbledore began his final speech. "Now that everyone has had their fill, I have a few reminders for the start of the term. First-year students, please remember that the forest on campus is off-limits. Older students should also keep this in mind," Dumbledore said, glancing at the Weasley brothers. "Additionally, Mr. Filch, the caretaker, has asked me to remind everyone that magic is not permitted in the corridors during breaks. Quidditch tryouts will be held in the second week of the term," Dumbledore continued, setting the stage for the events to come. Ethan had a dark look on his face after hearing this. If there was any way to make everyone want to do something, the best way was to ban it. This old bee did it completely on purpose. If you don't want people to go, you should seal the corridor. Now, before everyone goes to bed, let's sing the school song together. After Dumbledore finished speaking loudly, the expressions of all the teachers and most of the old students seemed to stiffen. Dumbledore flicked his wand, and a long golden ribbon flew out, floating high above the ground. Lines of text twisted like snakes above the dining table. "Each person chooses his or her favorite tune," said Dumbledore. "Ready, sing!" The Weasley twins, known for being the troublemakers that Dumbledore had to keep an eye on, managed to lead everyone into further chaos by choosing the tune of a funeral march. Everyone finally finished singing in confusion. After the school song, they lined up and left the auditorium under the leadership of the prefect. Just then, Ethan saw a face in the crowd, a face that shouldn't be here. She had gray hair, green eyes, a high forehead, neat eyebrows, and a heroic beauty in her face. The only thing that worried him was that there was a scar missing from her eye. In shock, Ethan couldn't help but shout the other party's name. "Cyrilla!" Chapter 14. Hearing someone calling her, the gray-haired girl turned around and glanced at Ethan in surprise. It was as if she was curious about why this new student, whom she had never met before, knew her name. When their eyes met, Ethan immediately realized his mistake. However, this moment allowed him to observe the girl more closely. She appeared to be around 14 or 15 years old, seemingly in the same grade as the prefect, Penelo Cravat. The two were walking side by side at the forefront of Ravenclaw, indicating a close relationship between them. Upon seeing Cyrilla's face from the front, Ethan was struck by her resemblance to Ciri from The Witcher 3, albeit much younger. Coupled with her reaction to the name Cyrilla, Ethan was almost certain that she was indeed the Sintra cub, White Wolf's daughter, the daughter of time and space, blessed with the ancient blood, Cyrilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon. The question that puzzled him was why she was at Hogwarts. This was not Kaer Morhen, and Ethan had never heard rumors of sorceresses and witchers in the magical world. However, he theorized that Cyrilla's ancient blood might have granted her the ability to travel through time and space. According to the lore in the Witcher novels, Ciri had traveled to various places and times, including Venice and Poland in the Middle Ages and Britain during the Industrial Age, where she even met Galahad, King Arthur's Holy Grail knight. Could it be that she traveled to Hogwarts on her own? Ethan wondered, sensing that something was amiss. With her country and family destroyed, it seemed improbable for her to casually attend classes in another world if it was merely due to her own abilities. Suddenly, Ethan recalled the epiphany he had. The anomalies caused by you will be gradually revealed. Was this his impact on the world? This thought only deepened the mystery surrounding everything. After exchanging glances with Cyrilla, Ethan decided not to pursue any further contact with the senior student. Until he became more familiar with her, he planned to keep his knowledge to himself to avoid complications. With these thoughts in mind, Ethan followed the group towards the common room. The Ravenclaw common room was located further away than those of the other three houses, not near the main tower courtyard, but on the tower on the other side of the astronomy tower complex. To reach it, they needed to cross a stone bridge. In front of the tower, Prefect Penelo Cravat explained, "The ever-changing staircases of Hogwarts were suggested and designed by Rowena Ravenclaw, one of the founders of the school. Please be careful when ascending the stairs and ensure you don't go in the wrong direction. Our common room and dormitories are on the west side of the castle. It's still a bit of a journey, so watch your step," she added. Indeed, navigating the tower's stairs required caution as they constantly changed. For instance, the stairs materialized in real time as the group advanced, leaving the tower empty where no one had stepped before. As they climbed the tall tower, Ethan grew impatient. It seemed excessive for the Ravenclaw common room to be situated so high, considering they were still human after all. Finally, they reached the entrance of the common room, located at the top of the Ravenclaw tower. An ancient, smooth wooden board with a huge eagle-shaped bronze door knocker was immediately noticeable. Penelo, leading the group, gently knocked on the door knocker 3 times, eliciting a magnetic and mysterious sound from it. "I only work under pressure. Only I can hurt myself. Who am I?" "Diamond," Penelo answered almost immediately, yet she hesitated before entering. Immediately, she turned around and began explaining to the freshmen. "In fact, you'll find that the common rooms of other houses have fixed passwords, but ours does not. As long as you can correctly answer the questions posed by the door knocker, you'll be granted entry. Don't worry, the door knocker doesn't ask rigid logic questions, but rather philosophica, ones. These questions don't have fixed answers. As long as your reasoning is convincing, you'll be allowed in. But there's no need to worry about security because, for nearly 1,000 years, no outsider has managed to bypass this simple yet effective barrier, except for us Ravenclaws." After hearing this, Ethan raised his eyebrows in curiosity. Although Ravenclaw was known for valuing intelligence, it wasn't guaranteed that all intelligent individuals would be sorted into Ravenclaw. The intelligence of Ravenclaws often surpassed that of other houses. For instance, Hermione, a true academic prodigy, was sorted into Gryffindor. If no outsider has entered in 1,000 years, how does the Eagle Door ensure that only Ravenclaws can answer its questions? Perhaps the Eagle Door has the ability to discern who is approaching. If it's an outsider, maybe the question becomes significantly more challenging. But for a Ravenclaw, perhaps the difficulty is adjusted to be more manageable. Don't fear the Eagle Door's questions. We Ravenclaws excel in learning. You'll soon find joy in tackling the challenges it presents. It's not uncommon to see students from various years gathering to solve the question of the day. This also serves as a great opportunity to meet classmates from other years, the female prefect continued. However, this challenge can become slightly bothersome when you've forgotten your books or Quidditch gear for the day, so I suggest double-checking your bags before leaving the Ravenclaw Tower. She then opened the door, inviting the young wizards to enter. The Ravenclaw common room was a spacious circular room adorned with elegant arched windows draped in blue and bronze silk. Through these windows, one could behold the stunning views outside. The ceiling, designed as a dome, was speckled with stars, mirroring the dark blue carpet below, which also featured a starry pattern, creating a profound and mysterious atmosphere. The room was furnished with large tables and chairs, alongside rows of bookshelves. Opposite the entrance stood a white marble bust of Rowena Ravenclaw, a woman celebrated for her beauty and wisdom. A door beside the statue led to the dormitories above. From the arched windows of our circular common room, you can see the entire Hogwarts campus, the Black Lake, the Forbidden Forest, the Quidditch pitch, and the greenhouse. No other house is as fortunate as we are to enjoy such beautiful scenery, she boasted. Ravenclaw has another unique aspect. Our people are very individualistic. Some might even call them eccentric. But it's often the case that geniuses don't conform to the norm. Unlike some houses, we encourage you to dress as you please, believe what you want, and speak your mind. We don't shun those who are different. Rather, we celebrate uniqueness. Ethan thought of Luna, the eccentric girl who would join the school next year. She was often bullied for her oddities. So, did celebrating the unique only apply to a certain extent? Or was Luna considered too peculiar, even for Ravenclaw? Speaking of unique individuals, you'll adore our head of house, Professor Phileas Flitwick. People often underestimate him due to his short stature and high-pitched voice, but he is the most knowledgeable and skilled charms professor alive. Many believe he has goblin ancestry, but please refrain from asking him about it rudely. His office door is always open to any Ravenclaw with a question, and if you're feeling down, he'll cheer you up with those delightful little cakes from a tin in his desk drawer, making them dance before you. In fact, you might even pretend to be upset just to see the cakes dance. It's truly a sight worth seeing. Ravenclaw boasts a glorious history. Most of the great wizarding inventors and innovators have emerged from our academy. Among them are Perpetua Fancourt, the inventor of the moonscope, Laverne de Montmorency, a renowned pharmacist who created numerous love potions, and Ignatia Wildsmith, the inventor of Floo powder. We also boast famous ministers of magic who were once part of Ravenclaw, including Millicent Bagnold. He was in office the night Harry Potter survived the Dark Lord's death curse, famously defending Britain's right to celebrate with the words, "I insist that celebration is our inalienable right." Another notable minister is Lorcan MacLeod, a wizard of considerable intellect who preferred communicating through smoke signals from his wand. It's true, we've produced some eccentric individuals as well, such as Ulrich, who famously wore a jellyfish as a hat and became a classic punchline in many wizarding jokes. Regarding our relationship with the other houses, you've likely heard of Slytherin. They're not all bad, but caution is advised until you truly know them. Their long-standing tradition is to win at any cost, which is something to be mindful of during Quidditch matches and exams. Gryffindors are commendable, but if there's one critique, it's their penchant for showing off. They also tend to be less tolerant of unconventional interests, such as ascension, the magical properties of troll eggs, or omenology, which involves using eggs for divination. Unlike Gryffindor, we in Ravenclaw cherish intellectual curiosity. If you're inclined to spend your days and nights in the common room, experimenting with eggs and documenting predictions based on how the yolks land, you'll find no judgment here. Only potential collaborators. As for the Hufflepuffs, they are undeniably the friendliest people in the school. When it comes to competition, particularly in exams, they're not the ones to worry about. Oh, and before I forget, the ghost of our house is the Grey Lady. Though many believe she never speaks, she occasionally converses with us Ravenclaws. She is the daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw, our house's founder, and a very beautiful woman. Rumors link her to the Bloody Baron, but of course, we never inquire about it. She proves especially helpful when you're lost or can't find something. To conclude, let me reiterate, congratulations on becoming a member of one of the smartest, sharpest, and most amusing houses at Hogwarts. With the series of introductions complete, the female prefect, along with Shirley, headed into the girls' dormitory. Ethan and the other freshmen began selecting their dormitories. Alan found a bed and soon engaged in conversation with his dorm mates, like Stephen Cornfoot and Kevin Entwistle, both of whom are fellow Ravenclaws mentioned in the original books. They exchanged goodnights and quickly fell asleep. Note: the promotional message about the Ravenclaw Lounge, Mid-Autumn Festival, and National Day Family Feedback, including the offer to recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points with a deadline from September 29th to October 6th, seems to be an unrelated or misplaced text, possibly an insertion from another context, or a promotional ad not relevant to the narrative. Therefore, it has been omitted from the revision for coherence and relevance to the story's flow. Chapter 15. Early the next morning, Ethan's internal clock roused him from a deep slumber. Before departing the dormitory, he glanced at the class schedule. This term, there were 8 courses in total: Transfiguration, Charms, Potions, History of Magic, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Astronomy, Herbology, and Flying. Typically, there were 2 classes in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, with Astronomy being the exception, holding its sole class in the evening. After all, it wouldn't make sense to observe the stars during the day. Conveniently, the first class began at 9 o'clock each morning, allowing students to avoid the breakfast rush. Lunch was scheduled from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and dinner spanned from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, accommodating the possibility of having up to 2 afternoon classes. Additionally, there were no classes on Friday afternoons, and the weekend offered 2 consecutive days off. Such a schedule would be envied by Muggle junior high students. Hogwarts operated on a 3-term system, with breaks for Christmas, Easter, and summer vacation. After dressing and washing up in silence, Ethan left the Ravenclaw Tower with his textbooks. He wasn't in a rush for breakfast. Instead, he set out to find the place he was most eager to explore in Hogwarts, the Room of Requirement. Known as the Come-and-Go Room, this was Hogwarts' most enigmatic location. Legend had it that it appeared only when truly needed, perfectly accommodating the seeker's requirements. Moreover, the Room of Requirement and its occupants were invisible on the Marauder's map, with entrance names vanishing from the map. Discovering it meant gaining a private space to safely study extraordinary magic without concern for prying eyes. Ethan appreciated how Hogwarts' legacy had accurately depicted the school, at least in terms of major areas and pathways, which helped him navigate. Hogwarts housed a total of 142 staircases, varying from wide and grand to narrow, small, and unstable. Some staircases changed destinations at specific times, more reliably than the predictable arrival of Ethan's aunt. Occasionally, a step would vanish mid-ascent, leading to a potential fall if one wasn't quick to react. Although special magic ensured a safe landing, it meant climbing back up from the ground floor. Additionally, some doors at Hogwarts wouldn't open unless asked politely or touched in just the right spot, while others were merely illusions, indistinguishable from real doors. The ever-moving nature of the castle, with wandering portraits and ambulatory armor, was believed to be a design by Ravenclaw herself, intended to deter the less astute students. Guided by his memory, Ethan made his way to the Defense Against the Dark Arts Tower and ascended to the 8th floor. Opposite the tapestry of Troll Fighting the Silly Barnabas was the Room of Requirement. Standing before the tapestry, Ethan focused his mind, clearing away any complex thoughts. He concentrated on a single desire: I need a place to hide things. Walking thrice past the wall near the tapestry, a smooth door materialized seemingly out of nowhere. Ethan quickly entered, and upon closing the door, he peeked through the gap. Darkness enveloped the space outside, indicating that once the door was shut, the Room of Requirement became isolated from the corridor. Ethan believed that this Room of Requirement would serve as his sanctuary for exploring the depths of magic, undisturbed and secure. Ethan realized that the space he was in was not in the same realm as Hogwarts, but seemed more like an alien dimension that could only be connected to Hogwarts through the user's desires. The knowledge of this space was far beyond Ethan's comprehension. He could only deduce that its principles were unrelated to the traceless telescopic spell and were more akin to the various demiplanes found in arcane magic. The area was as vast as a church, with the surrounding scenery resembling a city. The high walls were constructed from thousands of items left behind by students who had passed away. Bottles, hats, boxes, chairs, books, weapons, brooms, bats. All the items that had been disposed of by the vanishing curse in Hogwarts over thousands of years were stored here. Ethan knew that one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, Ravenclaw's diadem, was also concealed here. It was said that the wearer of the diadem could gain the wisdom of Ravenclaw. However, he did not intend to search for the diadem until he had acquired sufficient power to defend himself. His primary reason for visiting today was exploratory. According to his observations, although many of the old items were severely damaged, most could be restored with the repair spell. My previous idea was indeed viable, Ethan thought to himself. When I have time in the future, I can select some suitable old objects from here, restore them with a repair spell, collect them, and sell them in Diagon Alley during the summer vacation. After all, these items are just sitting here unused. No one will miss them. This way, I won't have to work for money anymore. While working allowed him to gain a lot of knowledge, Ethan was not one to unnecessarily burden himself. Since he could learn magic through study and experimentation, there was no need to exhaust himself. With his plan in mind, Ethan exited the space. Hogwarts was not easy to navigate, with its various classrooms and the common rooms of the four houses. However, he was not concerned about being seen. He made his way to the Great Hall, where breakfast was already underway. "Ethan, over here!" He saw Harry waving at him. Ethan, pointing to the Ravenclaw emblem on his robes, politely declined and headed to the Ravenclaw table. His roommates, Stephen and Kevin, were already there, enjoying their breakfast. "What's our first lesson?" Steve asked as he bit into a German sausage. "Our first class is Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration. It's a 2-hour session, shared with Gryffindor," Ethan replied, while adding bacon to his toast. "In the first-year course, we have 3 herbology classes each week to monitor the different growth stages of plants. We also have 2 classes each for spells, transfiguration, and potions. The history of magic and defense against the dark arts each have 2 classes per week, while flying and astronomy each have 1. At that moment, the Great Hall was filled with the sound of pop, 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 as numerous owls flew in, delivering letters. Ethan's owl, Hemmer, a brown eagle owl, flew towards him, not carrying a letter. Ethan rarely received mail, but seemingly joining in the fun. Ethan caught Hemmer with his wand before he could dive into his cream soup and fed him pieces of bacon. After eating, the little owl affectionately preened Ethan's hair with his oily beak. Suddenly, screams erupted from the other side of the Great Hall. "Oh my God, someone actually tried to rob Gringotts? What happened? What happened?" Several young wizards immediately huddled together. It turned out that someone had subscribed to the Daily Prophet, which reported that Gringotts in Diagon Alley had been targeted by a dark wizard. The thief had broken into the underground vault, but the goblins claimed that nothing was stolen, and the thief was nearly caught. However, they ultimately failed to apprehend the thief, sparking widespread discussion. Ethan immediately realized, isn't this about the Philosopher's Stone? Indeed, the goblins are unreliable. The farce concluded swiftly, and Ethan and his roommates rose, heading towards the Transfiguration classroom. Note, the promotional event text regarding Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day, including the recharge offer, seems out of context for the narrative and appears to be an inserted advertisement or unrelated content. It has been omitted to maintain narrative coherence and focus on the storyline. Chapter 16. When Ethan arrived at the Transfiguration classroom, there were still a few minutes before the class was set to start. Many students had already taken their seats, engaging in animated discussions about Transfiguration. None seemed to notice the tabby cat perched on the podium. "Ethan, let's sit towards the back. That way, there's less chance of being called on by the professor." Why are you covering my mouth?" Stephen's question was abruptly cut off as Ethan covered his mouth, having noticed the cat on the podium, casting a glance their way. It was only after Ethan pulled him to a seat that Stephen realized something was amiss. "You've been eyeing that cat. Is there a problem with it?" "That's Professor McGonagall. She's one of only 7 animi registered by the Ministry of Magic in the 20th century, Ethan explained. "Wow, how did you figure that out?" Kevin asked in admiration. "Notice the pattern in the cat's eyes. It's exactly the same as the glasses Professor McGonagall wears. Moreover, the cat has maintained a sitting position without performing any typical cat behaviors like licking its fur, sharpening its claws, or moving its ears or tail," Ethan analyzed calmly, earning looks of increasing admiration from his friends. "Finally, and most importantly, Professor McGonagall was the one who oversaw my enrollment during the summer, and she transformed into a cat right in front of me." The revelation left them speechless for a moment. Realizing that Professor McGonagall was indeed present on the podium, they grew uneasy, fearing reprimand for any misstep. Meanwhile, they couldn't help but feel a sense of schadenfreude towards the little wizards who, in the teacher's perceived absence, had been up to mischief. Shortly after, Hermione Granger entered the classroom. Clearly a cat enthusiast, she attempted to pet the cat on the podium, only for Professor McGonagall to deftly avoid her touch. Ethan couldn't help but look forward to Hermione's reaction upon realizing she had almost petted the professor's head. Another 5 minutes passed, and with the start of class, Professor McGonagall still hadn't resumed her human form. Just then, Harry and Ron hurried into the classroom. "Harry, that's great! Looks like Professor McGonagall hasn't arrived yet. Ron exclaimed with relief. Harry nodded, sharing in the sentiment. However, at that moment, the British short-hair cat on the podium leaped forward gracefully, transforming into Professor McGonagall before landing. The sudden change left both Ron and Harry gaping in astonishment. "It's so awesome!" Ron couldn't help but exclaim. "Thank you for your comment, Mr. Weasley. Perhaps I should turn Mr. Potter or you into a pocket watch. That way, at least one of you might manage to keep time," Professor McGonagall retorted, her gaze stern behind her glasses. "We got lost," Harry admitted, sounding somewhat aggrieved. "Then perhaps I should turn you into a map. Though I believe you don't need a map to find your seats, right?" she countered. The two dejectedly followed Professor McGonagall's directive and found their seats. As for Hermione, she remained stunned, not daring to admit her near mishap. Under the watchful eyes of the students, Professor McGonagall tapped the table with her wand. "Transfiguration is the most complex and dangerous subject for first years. I will not tolerate any mischief in my class. Anyone causing trouble will be asked to leave and not return. Keep this in mind," she warned. With a wave of her wand, a glass cover flew over to her, revealing a box with 4 toad legs inside. This was the result of a mistake made by a student who attempted to transfigure his pet toad, and now it can never revert to its original form. Let this serve as a cautionary tale to those who underestimate the complexity and danger of transfiguration. The dangers of transfiguration were clear. You don't want to grow something weird on your body, right? Everyone quickly nodded, a chill settling in their hearts. Ethan heard Ron whispering to Peter, "No, Scab, RS, the mouse in his pocket. Don't worry, I will never turn you into that." That's right, because a cup and a box are entirely different things. On the podium, Professor McGonagall officially began the class. "Everyone, please turn to the first page of the Elementary Transfiguration Guide. Today, we will discuss the basic principles of transfiguration." Ethan took out a pen and notebook, casting a scribe spell on the pen. The pen immediately took flight, autonomously recording Professor McGonagall's lecture in the notebook. This convenience caught Steve's attention, who frequently glanced sideways. The scribe spell in arcane magic was far more convenient than the shorthand quill of this world. After all, the former was merely a 0-level spell, while the latter was an expensive magical item, making them incomparable. Ethan pondered the potential business opportunity of creating a shorthand pen by embedding the scribe spell into it. For now, he decided to jot down the idea. Driven by their curiosity about the art of transfiguration, the students were captivated by the lecture and eager to start practicing. However, they soon realized that transforming furniture into animals would take considerable time. Ethan, for his part, gained a profound understanding of transfiguration, which increased his expertise in the Transfiguration School. He learned several classic attribute enhancement spells, including Bear's Tenacity, Bull's Strength, Cat's Grace, Eagle's Splendor, Fox's Cunning, and Owl's Wisdom, which could respectively improve durability, strength, agility, charm, perception, and intelligence. After 30 minutes of theory, Professor McGonagall assigned a practical task: transforming matches into needles. Each student received a match and began their attempts. As new wizards with limited control over their magic, even spells with clear incantations were challenging, let alone transfiguration, which relied entirely on will and the magic system of imagination. Most matches remained stubbornly unchanged. However, there were exceptions. Ethan heard a faint explosion and turned to see Seamus Finnegan's match burned to ashes, a typical occurrence in the Harry Potter world. Yet, this task posed no difficulty for Ethan, who had recently enhanced his talent in the School of Change. On his first attempt, he transformed a match into a wooden needle, and on his second, he turned the wooden needle into a metal one, indistinguishable from a real needle. Very impressive. It's rare for a student to achieve this level in their first lesson. 5 points for Ravenclaw, Professor McGonagall remarked, surprised by Ethan's performance. While it wasn't unheard of for students, typically from wizarding families, to succeed in their first class, Ethan was an exception. He had only been introduced to the wizarding world that summer, indicating his talent far exceeded her expectations. "Mr. Green, would you mind demonstrating for everyone?" The freshman watched Ethan with eager eyes. Calmly, Ethan transformed another match into Ro. A pin appeared on the spot, and the flammable match head transformed into a white, round needle. This scene garnered a round of applause. Professor Gerard became increasingly aware of the talent possessed by the young wizard before him. By the end of the class, aside from Ethan, only Hermione Granger and 2 other Ravenclaws had successfully altered the matches. Chapter 17. Before the class ended, Professor McGonagall assigned a 7-inch piece of homework. She also encouraged the students to practice more after class and promised to assess everyone's progress in the next session. After a lesson spent waving wands, it seemed that for the young wizards, their transformation skills might not have improved much, though their arms might have grown a bit thicker from the effort. Ethan noticed Ron's dejected expression, and while packing his belongings, Ron complained, "I suspect there's something wrong with my match. It hasn't changed at all." Harry, equally frustrated, spread his hands helplessly. "My match just flipped over by itself." Their gazes then shifted towards Ethan, filled with a mix of envy and resentment. This was the kind of resentment that struggling students often felt towards their more successful peers. "We were friends in the same compartment on the train. Why are you the only one who's doing so well?" Ethan shuddered, realizing that a regrettable divide had formed between him and Harry. The afternoon brought a charms class at 1 o'clock, which Gryffindor would attend alongside Slytherin. In fact, the curriculum was designed so that students from all 4 houses would have several classes together throughout the week, with each class combination varying. Ethan believed this arrangement was intended to foster interaction among students from different houses. After all, Hogwarts' method of sorting students based on personality traits rather than academic interests could easily lead to cliquishness and hostility. Given that Hogwarts was a microcosm of the entire British wizarding world, such divisions were counterproductive to unity. Therefore, taking classes together was a necessary measure to strengthen the bonds among young wizards. On their way to the charms classroom, located in the left-hand corridor on the 4th floor, it was no surprise to encounter the school caretaker, Filch, and his cat, Mrs. Norris. Since the right side of the 4th floor was off-limits, Filch patrolled the area every 2 days, hoping to catch any students daring to trespass. No one wanted to risk detention, so they all obediently turned left. The desks in the charms classroom were arranged in 2 rows, with students facing each other. Professor Phileas Flitwick, the head of Ravenclaw and charms professor, was so short that he had to stand on a stack of books to see over his desk. There were rumors of his having fairy blood, which no one could confirm. However, what was undeniable was his proficiency in all kinds of magical spells. It was said that he had won a dueling championship in his youth, a claim Ethan found entirely believable, considering Flitwick's small stature provided a natural advantage in being a difficult target. True to the introduction given by the female prefect, Professor Flitwick was indeed a humorous individual. When he called Harry's name, he feigned excitement so dramatically that he tumbled off the stack of books he was standing on. "Okay, students, please turn to the first chapter of Standard Spells Elementary, and let's discuss the general principles of magic." Professor Flitwick began, his voice shrill but impossible to ignore. Unlike arcane mages, wizards possess a somewhat one-dimensional and highly emotional understanding of magic, leading to a variety of opinions. However, when it comes to the basic principles, there is a consensus. The casting of magic requires 2 elements, magic itself and will. Magic serves as the raw material, while will acts as the machinery of production. It is only by combining these 2 elements that one can produce the phenomenon known as magic. The wand's role is to focus magical power. Wand movements and incantations not only guide the flow of magical energy to achieve specific effects, but also provide mental cues to the caster, making it easier for wizards to harness their magical power and focus their intent. For beginners, wands and spells are invaluable tools. By simply following the prescribed steps, they can cast spells, even without a deep understanding of the magic at work. However, with continuous practice, a wizard's comprehension of magic deepens, leading to greater mastery and control. A wizard proficient in a certain spell can reach a point where the gestures and incantations become instinctual, allowing them to cast spells without verbal or physical cues. This advanced technique is known as wandless and silent casting. However, mastering a single spell in depth only makes one a proficient user, not a true master of magic. A prime example of this is the Forgotten Curse Jinchuriki. A truly skilled wizard understands the essence of spells and gestures deeply, enabling them to deconstruct and recombine these elements to create new magic with specific effects. Ethan held Professor Snape in high regard for his exceptional skills. Snape was not only a potions master, but also excelled in occlumency and legilimency, confidently serving as a double agent. His expertise in curses, in particular, was unparalleled. During his school years, Snape invented several forms of dark magic that became universally applicable spells. These spells, unlike many that are tailor-made for their creators and difficult for others to use, were adjusted by Snape to be accessible to most wizards. One of Snape's most notable creations is the upside-down golden clock, still widely used at Hogwarts. Another significant spell, Shadow's Edge, created in his 5th year, stands out even among dark magic for its lethal efficiency and the continuous damage it inflicts without immediate fatal consequences. Unlike other flashy spells, Shadow's Edge operates almost silently, making it ideal for discreet operations. Ethan believed that if not for Lily Potter's intervention, Snape could have surpassed even Dumbledore in the realm of dark magic. Inspired by Snape, Ethan set a personal goal to double the number of spells in the general spell list before graduation. Despite his ambition, he understood the importance of starting with the basics. The first spell taught in class was the Illuminating Curse. When Professor Flitwick asked who knew the spell, Ethan was the first to raise his hand and correctly cast Fluorescence Flashing, earning Ravenclaw 5 points for his accurate incantation. During the practical stage, Ethan, who had already mastered the spell and even developed a dancing light technique upon receiving his textbook, demonstrated his skill. Professor Flitwick was impressed with Ethan's perfect execution of the light spell, further rewarding Ravenclaw with 5 points. Students at Ravenclaw prioritize personal achievements and hobbies over collective honors, showing a lack of interest in self-expression. This attitude has resulted in Ravenclaw housing a group of academic elites who, despite their brilliance, often find themselves outperformed by Slytherin in the House Cup competitions, with Gryffindor also overshadowing them. However, a change was on the horizon with the arrival of someone both talented and willing to express themselves. In Professor Flitwick's view, Ethan was a cut above his peers, prompting the Ravenclaw head of house to eagerly award extra points to his house. Beyond earning points for Ravenclaw, Ethan found additional benefits during the class. Seizing the opportunity for free practice, he inquired about the advanced applications of the Lumos spell from Professor Flitwick. The professor, delighted with his favorite student's curiosity, shared several advanced techniques with him. You have learned Lumos Maxima. You are proficient in arcane magic, having grasped the core concept of Lumos Maxima and improved upon it. Your ultimate illumination spell has been upgraded to Daylight. Daylight. This spell illuminates a specific area as brightly as daylight. The light it produces is akin to sunlight, capable of repelling vampires and similar creatures. With this new knowledge, Ethan moved a step closer to achieving his personal goals. In celebration of the Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day, a special offer was announced, recharge 100 and receive 500 VIP points. This promotion, running from September 29th to October 6th, was an opportunity not to be missed. Chapter 18. The next class was Herbology, which they attended alongside Hufflepuff students. The Herbology classroom, located in the southeast of the castle, is housed within a large, independent greenhouse. Managed by Professor Sprout, the Hufflepuff head of house and herbology professor, this greenhouse is home to a myriad of magical plants and herbs. These plants serve not only as teaching aids, but also contribute to Hogwarts resources, with many of Snape's potion ingredients being supplied by Professor Sprout. Professor Pomona Sprout is a short witch with flowing gray hair, often seen wearing a thick, patch-covered hat and clothes smeared with dirt, a testament to her hands-on approach in the greenhouse. Despite her disheveled appearance, she is the epitome of a Hufflepuff, optimistic, compassionate, and incredibly friendly. Her lectures are known for their liveliness, making her classes a favorite among students. Ethan, with his exceptional memory and the scholar's touch ability, excelled in herbology as he did in all his classes. His brain, functioning like a super database, allowed him to recall any piece of information at will. While mere knowledge doesn't guarantee practical application, Ethan's ability to accurately answer any question made him stand out, earning the admiration of his Ravenclaw peers. They valued the ability to actively participate in class discussions, especially when someone could do so with such precision. After class, Ethan hurried to the dining hall, his quick pace making Steve think they were kindred spirits. However, Ethan's rush wasn't to savor his meal, but to finish quickly and head to the library. After a swift dinner, he was the first student to arrive at the library, even before Hermione Granger, known for her studious nature. Yet, Ethan's initial focus wasn't on reading, but on completing his homework. Unlike the Muggle world, Hogwarts assignments didn't involve exercise books or workbooks, but rather essays and reflections, measured not by word count, but by the length of parchment used. With 3 classes that day, Ethan had nearly 2 feet of homework to complete. Many students preferred doing their homework in the library, where they could easily reference books. For Ethan, however, homework was hardly a challenge. His mind was a reservoir of information, and his adeptness at various writing techniques made the task effortless. His previous life's experience as a student in the Dragon Kingdom had honed his skills in crafting responses. More than his writing prowess, fellow students were envious of Ethan's automatic writing pen, which transcribed his dictations. This scribe spell was a little magic Ethan had invented, and he was willing to share it, but no one approached him, mistaking it for an expensive gadget. After finishing his homework, Ethan began his true mission in the library. Housing the largest and most comprehensive collection of books in the British wizarding world, the library's shelves were filled with works accumulated over 1,000 years and donations from distinguished alumni. In the world of magic, the library at Hogwarts holds an unparalleled collection of books, surpassing even the most prestigious pureblood families, organizations like the Death Eaters, or the Ministry of Magic itself. For Ethan, the library represented almost half of Hogwarts's value. Upon their arrival at the library, Harry and the others immediately noticed Ethan engaged in a battle with a towering pile of books in the corner. The stack, reaching 3 or 4 feet high, nearly engulfed him. Harry, impressed by the sight, couldn't help but express his admiration. He reads so many books, no wonder he's so knowledgeable. Hermione, slightly envious, bit her lip and silently vowed, "The semester has just begun. I'll catch up with you soon." Ethan's method of reading was peculiar. Unlike most who would turn pages carefully or even quickly, he flipped through them as if shuffling a deck of cards, scanning each book from cover to cover in mere moments. This technique, reminiscent of the legendary quantum wave speed reading, baffled everyone, including the librarian, Mrs. Irma Pintz. Known for her strict management of the library, Mrs. Pintz was not one to tolerate any behavior that she deemed inappropriate for the sanctity of her books, even though Ethan's actions did not technically break any rules. "This student, this is not the proper way to read. You cannot possibly absorb any knowledge like this," she admonished, unaware of Ethan's unique ability, scholar's touch, which allowed him to comprehend and memorize the content rapidly. Ethan demonstrated his skill on the spot, leaving Mrs. Pintz speechless and causing her to retreat to her desk, though she continued to cast curious glances his way. The display left the others in awe, questioning the vast gap in abilities among students who had arrived on the same train. Everyone, except Hermione, felt discouraged from comparing themselves to Ethan, especially Ron, who was more interested in the parchment full of writing on Ethan's desk. Blushing, Ron hesitantly asked if he could copy Ethan's homework. Understanding his request, Ethan sighed and pushed the homework towards him, preferring not to be disturbed while reading. Ethan's ambition was to internalize the entire library's collection within the semester. After utilizing scholar's touch on all the books on his desk, he stood up and returned a large stack of books to the shelves. The library's vastness was impressive, spanning 2 floors and covering thousands of square meters, not including the hidden sections. Countless tall bookshelves stretched from the floor to the ceiling, 7 or 8 meters high, with many books requiring a ladder to reach. This environment was a paradise for Ethan, who was determined to explore every corner. As Ethan walked, he reached the depths of the library, where he encountered more than a dozen rows of bookshelves encircled by a magical barrier, marked with a warning sign, Forbidden Book Zone. From a distance, Ethan could feel the chaotic and immense magical power fluctuations emanating from within. In the magical world, it is known that truly powerful knowledge and spells can imbue the very pages they are written on with magical energy. By Ethan's estimation, given the scale of these magical fluctuations, the Forbidden Book Zone housed at least thousands of books brimming with magic. If half of Hogwarts' value lay in its library, then half of the library's value was undoubtedly within this forbidden area. To him, it was a treasure trove within a treasure trove. However, after casting a glance at Mrs. Pince, Ethan turned around and left. It wasn't the right time to venture into the Forbidden Book Zone. Ethan had already realized that the White Wizard's stance on magic was clear. He revered white magic and condemned black magic, a philosophy that contradicted Hogwarts' age-old traditions. Of course, Ethan disagreed with this, but the principal was, after all, the highest authority at Hogwarts. What could he do? He wasn't the boy who lived, or the savior of the great yin magical world. Rashly delving into forbidden knowledge would only cast suspicion on him. For a wizard with no significant background like him, it was best to adhere to the school's curriculum in his first year and study the sanctioned material. Causing trouble, wandering at night, secretly reading forbidden books, and sneaking into forbidden forests were not actions befitting his status. The Savior had Dumbledore's protection and was tasked with combating the Dark Lord to save the world, which justified any behavior. But for ordinary wizards, did they really think Hogwarts wouldn't expel students? So, if I got into trouble like Harry Potter, I'd be doomed, Ethan silently vowed. Yet for a time traveler who viewed everyone as an NPC and harbored a prideful heart, how long could such a resolution last? Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day Family Affection Reward. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Activity time, September 29th to October 6th. Chapter 19. After deciding to be a diligent student, Ethan actively participated in every class. Unlike before, he realized that Professor Dumbledore's primary concern was the broken prophecy, making Ethan's academic performance less scrutinized. This realization allowed him to engage more freely in his studies without the need to maintain a low profile. As Ethan became more active, Ravenclaw House naturally earned more points, and the professors grew fond of this Muggle-born prodigy. His main rival in academics was Hermione Granger, who, after encountering Ethan in the library, seemed to view him as her foremost competitor, eager to outdo him in every subject. However, Ethan's streak of earning extra points was halted during the History of Magic class. His challenge wasn't memorizing the material. His exceptional memory made that easy. The issue lay with Professor Binns, the ghostly teacher whose monotonous lectures lacked any form of interaction or engagement, making it impossible to earn extra points. This made History of Magic the most tedious class at Hogwarts, a sentiment Ethan would have found amusing had he encountered such a teaching style in his college days. Potions class presented another obstacle, primarily due to its location in the cold, damp basement, a setting Ethan and his fellow students suspected was chosen to match Professor Snape's gloomy disposition. The classroom, with its walls lined with jars of internal organs, resembled a medical school's herbarium, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Even the Slytherins, who were usually more tolerant of Snape, found the environment unsettling. The first potions class was particularly memorable. As Snape entered the room, his presence seemed to lower the temperature further. His disdainful introduction to the class, emphasizing the precision and discipline of potion-making, set a somber tone. Snape's lectures on the beauty and complexity of potions were lost on most students, who were more focused on his intimidating demeanor. Snape's method of questioning students, similar to Professor McGonagall's, involved putting them on the spot, though his selections were far from random. Ethan initially thought Snape would focus his attention on Harry, as in the original story, but was surprised to find himself the target of Snape's malice. This unexpected shift caught Ethan off guard, prompting him to brace himself for the challenges ahead. Was Ethan the unlucky one? This seemed normal, especially considering Snape's attitude towards Hermione in the original book. Snape had a clear disdain for students who were flamboyant and liked to show off, possibly stemming from his hatred towards James Potter and his friends. In short, Ethan had been targeted by Snape due to his previous outstanding performance. Additionally, Ethan speculated that his relationship with Harry played a part. He was the only Ravenclaw freshman who had a good relationship with Harry. "Green, stand up!" Snape's sudden demand broke the silence. "What will I get if I add Narcissus root powder to a mugwort infusion?" he asked. However, Ethan was unfazed by such head-scratchers. Not only had he included the potions textbook in his mental database, but his memories from a previous life also equipped him to counter Snape's challenges. "A bottle of the water of life and death, Professor," Ethan replied confidently. "If I asked you to find me a piece of bezoar, where would you look?" "In a cow's stomach." "What is the difference between Aconitum scaphoides and Aconitum wolfsbane?" "There is no difference. They are both Aconitum." Snape's barrage of questions, akin to a right kick, a right whip, and a left jab, were all effortlessly blocked by Ethan. Yet Snape persisted, increasing the difficulty of his questions. "Bezoars are the feces of what animal?" "Bezoars are not feces, but stones taken from the stomachs of goats." "When does sapweed need to be harvested?" "During the full moon." After a series of questions, Ethan continued to provide correct answers without hesitation, leaving his classmate in awe. However, Snape's next question caught Ethan off guard. "What does the water ghost brain do?" "Water ghost brain? Is this material even available in the world of Harry Potter?" Ethan thought, puzzled. Why would Snape ask this? Could he also have traveled through time? No, think carefully. Since Cirilla is also in this world, this can't be a coincidence. There have been unknown changes, Ethan reasoned internally. Considering the main plot hasn't shifted much, the impact of these changes seems minimal for now. But I'll need to study this carefully when I have time. Ethan's thoughts raced, surprised by Snape's superclass question, but he had played The Witcher 3 in his previous life. "Water ghost brain can be used to make healing potions," Ethan finally answered, then added in a low voice. "It also has a strong aphrodisiac effect on men." Snape was momentarily silent, clearly not expecting such a comprehensive answer from the Ravenclaw top student. The water ghost had become a top subject of study only in the past 10 years, with the water ghost brain being a newly discovered potion ingredient in the last 5. Most research on it was confined to pharmacists and cutting-edge papers. This first-year freshman's extensive knowledge, especially about the aphrodisiac effects of kelp discovered only last year, was astonishing. Snape took a deep look at Ethan, then turned to the other students. "What are you waiting for? Why don't you write down this knowledge?" he barked. Ethan smiled slightly, watching Snape's futile rage. However, his amusement was short-lived. After failing to stump Ethan, Snape, in a display of blatant favoritism, began explaining the lesson's content without awarding any points to Ravenclaw. Ethan found this partiality utterly shameless. Yet, through this ordeal, Ethan had managed to aim to impress the young wizards in his year. Chapter 20. In addition to basic theory and the use of equipment, this class also teaches the method of brewing a potion to treat scabies. The so-called scabies potion is, in essence, a medicine for treating skin diseases, capable of curing pustules, measles, boils, and other symptoms of tuberculosis. However, the brewing process requires meticulous care, as improper preparation can cause the potion to induce boils rather than cure them. Unlike various spells courses, the potions course emphasizes practical application over theoretical knowledge. After outlining the process and necessary precautions, Professor Snape divided the young wizards into 2 groups to begin their work. The array of equipment laid out before them, crucibles, grinding bowls, balances, stirring rods, knives, resembled the setup of Ethan's previous chemistry experiment class, with the notable exception of an alcohol lamp. Following Professor Snape's instructions, the students skillfully managed the medicinal ingredients, measuring, rolling them in egg wash, covering them with breadcrumbs, and deep frying them until golden. The enticing aroma made the children at the next table envious to the point of tears. To brew a qualified batch of scabies medicine, one must first grind a few snake fangs into powder using a mortar. Then a small amount of dried nettles is weighed, cut into sections, and set aside. Water is added to the crucible and brought to a boil, into which slugs with tentacles are added for steaming. After adding cold water and boiling it 3 times, the water is drained, the slugs are removed, placed in a grinding bowl, and ground into a paste. Water is added to the crucible once more, and it is brought to a boil over low heat. The fang powder, dried nettles, and slug puree are added in sequence, with careful stirring throughout the process. Finally, the crucible is removed from the heat, and porcupine quills are added. If the potion turns blue and emits pink smoke, it indicates successful brewing. Ethan's partner is his roommate, Steve, but Ethan completely dominates the brewing process. This is hardly surprising, given Ethan's summer job at a pharmacy in Diagon Alley, where he honed his skills with medicinal materials. Steve watched in admiration as Ethan showcased his proficiency. It was only then that Steve realized Ethan was a versatile student, excelling not only in spells and theoretical knowledge, but also in practical courses like potions. However, Ethan himself harbored critical views on the wizarding world's potion system, drawing from his experience in chemistry and biology experimental classes. In those classes, every material was measured with precision, and the heating and resting times were exact, emphasizing professionalism and accuracy. This standardized process ensured consistent results, paving the way for large-scale industrial production. In contrast, the preparation of potions in the wizarding world seemed more akin to following a cooking recipe, filled with vague instructions like a little bit of and a moment. This reliance on the potion maker's intuition meant that potions remained artisanal products, unsuitable for mass production. Ethan pondered the challenge of industrializing magic under such conditions. As Ethan observed Neville attempting to add the porcupine quill directly into the crucible, he acted swiftly, waving his wand and exclaiming, "Porcupine quills, fly!" The quill immediately soared out of Neville's hand. The porcupine quills fell into Ethan's grasp. "Do not release the porcupine quills until the crucible is removed from the fire," he reminded. Without Ethan's intervention, the potion would have exploded just as it did in the original book, covering everyone in a potion that would cause red and swollen scabies. Hearing this, Neville suddenly realized his mistake and murmured, "Thank you. Thank you, Ethan." Before Ethan could respond, Snape's hissing voice filled his ears. "Our Mr. Green thinks he can teach others just because he has the title of Ravenclaw Genius? If you interfere, with someone else's potion brewing, you will be deducted 5 points from Ravenclaw." In the original story, Snape was sarcastic and deducted points because Harry did not remind Neville. Now, even though Ethan took the initiative to help, Snape was still sarcastic and deducted points. Snape was indeed difficult to please. However, Ethan's efforts in class were not without reward. You prepared a potion for the first time and mastered the skills of potion making in practice. You gained the expertise. Potion mastery. Your steady technique increases your chance of spontaneous potion success and reduces your chance of accidents. You had a flash of inspiration while refining the scabies potion and realized the true potential of using magic potions for self-improvement. You combined the spells you mastered to create new potion formulas: the elixir of eternal bear's tenacity, the elixir of eternal bull's strength, the elixir of eternal cat's elegance, the elixir of eternal fox's cunning, the elixir of eternal owl's wisdom, and the elixir of eternal eagle's majesty. These are actually permanent elixirs. Ethan was greatly satisfied with this epiphany. For wizards, spellcasting ability is crucial, but physical fitness is equally important. Unfortunately, in the Harry Potter world, there are few means to enhance a wizard's physical and mental qualities permanently. Ethan had considered the importance of exercise, believing that even wizards should develop holistically. Now, with a shortcut available, the need for hard work seemed less pressing. The only concern was the rarity and cost of the materials required for these potions. For instance, the Eternal Bull's Strength elixir required the blood of Riem cattle, which was scarce and rarely available on the open market. The Eternal Cat's Elegance Elixir needed Ocelot Claw Powder. The Eternal Fox's Cunning Elixir required the tail-tip hair of a nine-tailed fox. The Eternal Eagle's Majesty Elixir needed Griffin Beak Powder, and the Eternal Bear's Fortitude Elixir required a bear's paw. These materials were extremely rare and would be costly to acquire. The most challenging was the Eternal Owl's Wisdom Elixir, which needed the head feathers of an owl beast, a creature Ethan believed did not exist in the Harry Potter world. On the other hand, auxiliary materials were relatively easier to obtain, such as hopla juice, moonstone, mud monster tongue, and unicorn hair, all of which could be found in the Forbidden Forest. How frustrating! I had just sworn not to go to the Forbidden Forest, but now I find myself having to break that promise. It's hard to keep up with the changes in my plans, Ethan thought, feeling somewhat helpless. What else could he do? As long as it made him stronger, a few broken promises to himself were a small price to pay. After all, he was the only one who knew of these promises. Inventing the formulas was just the beginning. It didn't mean immediate enhancement of his attributes, but it was certainly a step in the right direction. This development also strengthened Ethan's resolve. Ethan's determination to earn more money was evident. In celebration of the Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day, a special family affection reward was announced. By recharging 100, participants could receive 500 VIP points. This was an opportunity not to be missed. The promotion was available from September 29th to October 6th, encouraging everyone to take advantage of this limited-time offer.